additional judge.
My friend, welcome to Black Americans for John Kitover in Illinois 16. We're with the world-famous Rabbi Randy McDickerson and Zemini Bubble Boy.
That's about a billion. It's a little over a billion. So
we are here with the Black Muse, our black political consultant who recently joined the campaign to elect John Kitover for Illinois 16. Welcome, my friend.
So with almost the same price, you can run 1,000 more judges for 10 years. Damn near.
Say hello to Mona. Mona's my
they proposing to detain?
Welcome, Mona, to Black Americans for John Kitover. Fork it over for Congressman of the 16th District, Illinois.
People who are subject to deportation.
So are you saying people who've broken the law?
People who are subject to deportation is what I'm saying.
Okay. In other words, I'm not sure you're addressing. I'm not sure the immigration judges address the problem of the people he wants to detain.
That's right.
Oh my God, they're supposed to address the backlog. I know, it's fucking stupid. Like, they're supposed to address the backlog. They're supposed to address the backlog. Just shut up. I got it. Norm. It's not hard. They are. Yes. The whole point of increasing the judges is to address the backlog. That is a very specific problem that they're trying to solve. Stop trying to switch it up. We're not talking about other problems. We're talking about that problem.
I'm not switching it up. I wanted to know why.
Stop bringing up other shit that's not relevant. Stop bringing up other shit that's not relevant.
You brought up.
I'm trying to address the claim you made, which is that it is somehow too expensive to do this. It is not.
Okay, well, you feel that it is not.
But it is.
I guess it depends. I guess it depends on what you want to spend the money on.
But it's not too expensive. We just approved $150 billion to do something that's not going to address this problem.
Right.
The same money we just invested into new detention facilities and more ICE agents could have been invested into this problem and ran this shit for 10 years. So, like, what are you saying right now?
You just said that the detention facilities weren't relevant. When I asked you who they wanted to put in there.
They're not to the thing that I'm talking
bring
about.
them up. Why are you bringing it up then?
You brought it up.
No, you did. You just said you're the one who made the point that we just spent $150 billion on detention facilities. That's why I brought it up.
But the point was about the amount of money that we spent. It
Yo, Zach, if you want to go in this room, it's called Why Trump's Firing of Immigration Judges is Problematic. You should go in there and use Grok and create a prompt and then debate Black Muse with it.
To this other purpose, we could have addressed the thing you're saying costs too much money for 10 years. That's what I'm saying.
The goal of the detention facilities is to discourage
That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. I'm talking about the goal of reducing the backlog, which is not too expensive for the reasons you said.
Okay, all right. Well, that's your goal. You want to reduce the backlog in that way.
No, that's the thing that you said was impossible.
No.
I've demonstrated that it's clearly possible. It's not too expensive.
It's possible, but it's not desirable to the people who are making this decision.
That nigga don't like me.
Fine, but that doesn't matter. That debunks the claim you made that this somehow is impossible.
I hope you said that with an AR at the end.
I didn't say it in the room. He didn't let me on stage.
We're talking about the falsity of the claim you made. Can you just acknowledge that those were two false claims you made?
No.
Those were two false
It's
claims.
the opposite. It's the opposite.
You said it was too expensive. That's false.
Yeah.
And you said that and you said that it was impossible, and that's false too.
Well, money is spent based on the goals of the person spending the money.
But it's not too expensive, and it's not impossible. So those are false claims.
That's not where you want to deploy the money.
But that doesn't make it too expensive.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't. If I have $150 billion in my pocket, and I look at something that costs $150 billion, and I go, I don't buy that. That doesn't mean that thing is too expensive. What it means is I don't want to buy that.
I can tell you don't have a budget.
The hell are you talking about?
I'm talking about how people make financial decisions.
What does that have to do with the what does that have to do with the false
If an
statements?
expenditure doesn't...
What does that have to do with the false statements you made? You're changing the subject and moving the goalpost.
saying that if I don't want to spend my money on something.
You said somebody suggested that we should increase the amount of judges. That's fine. You don't have to announce it. Just go. Just don't announce it.
Not LaGuardia Airport.
You said that when somebody suggested that we should increase the amount of law judges in order to address the backlog, you said that's impossible, and then you also moved on to say it was too expensive. I can give you a counter argument which demonstrates that neither of those things are true. This is the part where you can see you were wrong and then apologize for being stupid.
Okay, so I have to check your math to even know if your response was legitimate. And right now I don't have that. But I don't think that it is.
What are you talking about, Norm?
Of the math that you just said.
If it costs $1.83 billion a year and we just approved almost 10 times that much, the math is easy. That means that we could have used the current budget that we're now applying to hiring more ICE agents and building detention facilities to addressing a particular problem, and we could have addressed that problem for like 10 years, bro, approximately.
Right.
That's the math is easy. Like, what are you doing right now, bro? Like,
well,
it's not difficult.
Well,
you can check that in your head, bro. You can check that in your head.
So clearly you don't want my answer, so I won't bother to try.
I'm just asking you to be honest and admit you were wrong, because you were wrong on 2 counts. One, you said it was too expensive, and the other, you said it was impossible. Neither of those are true.
I utterly and thoroughly challenge your claim, but you're welcome to make it.
My claim was simply that your claims were false. My claim was simply that your claims were false, which is true. So an honest person would be like, you know what, I fucked up. I got it wrong.
Yeah,
that's what you would do at this moment right now.
Right, and I completely disagree with your position.
You disagree that what you said was false, even though I just demonstrated it was false?
Yeah.
Okay, how is it not false, Norm?
How is it not false? How is what not false? My claim.
The claim that it is impossible or too expensive to increase the amount of immigration judges by 1,000. How are any of those claims true?
So
is it the math?
What is the goal? Is it only to reduce the backlog?
How are your claims?
You are now listening to another edition of Low IQ Dumb People talking about nothing. All of their time.
I didn't change anything. I keep asking this.
What's so awesome is that Norm is, just keeps it going and going. I mean, Norm doesn't have to do this, but it's just like, I think he knows he's being recorded. I mean, he knows I record him, but I send him a lot of his clips. He never really comments on, his performance, but I've got some funny some funny clips of him, like really funny clips. Him and Mikhail, this is kind of like a him and Mikhail convo.
The immigration problem with immigration judges.
To address the backlog of 4 million cases in immigration court, bro. That's a very specific problem.
And how many? How much are they growing per year, bro?
It doesn't fucking matter if the backlog is currently at 4 million.
Yeah.
And you double the pace at which you, more than double the pace at which you can cover them, then presumably the backlog is going to dwindle, bruh.
Sure.
Right? So what does that have to do with you answering or really dodging to the question about why your claims are false or whether or not your claims are false? It is neither too expensive.
Okay, Zach,
or
let's try to do like a Tanya
the amount of
Wisdom
judges by
Education
1,000.
Institute where
Just
like we
demonstrated that
dedicate
it would cost
30
$1.83
minutes
million per year, which is only in the one big beautiful bill approved $150 billion, almost 10 times that much for the purposes of building immigration detention facilities and hiring a shit ton of agents. So how is it even possible
probably
or
like
too
1,000
expensive?
videos to turn
How
from
much is the backlog
private to
growing
public.
per year? You really haven't done all your
What the fuck? What does that have to do
I've
with
been
the question I
driving
asked you, bro?
Isaiah, that guy,
the
Bill
backlog
Pico's
keeps
crazy.
growing.
He's been going really crazy.
But the backlog really won't keep
Ellen,
growing if we
Sue,
increase the amount
Stern.
of judges.
Anyways, like all these people have given up even looking at my YouTube
No, it'll
because
grow
they
at
know
a slower
that
rate.
I'm like live streaming.
No,
but
certainly.
I'm
It
gonna
won't
turn
grow
them off
anymore
to
at all.
public. It's not like anybody's gonna watch them, but that'll basically like bring me up to date on all my reporting activity or everything I've reported is public.
God, bro.
And then from there, I'm just gonna like take all
This is a weird.
this
I did the math. I literally did the math. I walked you through the math like a fun
get by
right
recording from my house and
Like I'm
just get
teaching
back
one of my
to
first graders.
getting to
I
my
walked you
books
through the
and
math. It's
then
not
going
hard.
through the beach into
The
the
math is not
sun.
difficult.
stop listening to podcasts and stop speaking on it as well.
You're just saying that. You're just saying that. You're not explaining anything.
And
You're
I
not
also have to
arguing
start
anything. You're just
organizing
saying
for the
things.
campaign on the ground to get signatures for the ballots.
Norm, you're not addressing. You're not addressing the core question, which is how the fuck are the stupid claims you just made true? It's neither too expensive nor is it impossible to apply $1.83 billion a year when we just approved $150 billion a year to address immigration concerns. The fuck are you talking about?
First thing we need to do is to know if your math is right.
Anyways,
And you
just
left out a
giving
key
you my
word.
to-dos. I also bought this
What is
AI
wrong with the
bracelet you wear,
What rate is the
and
problem
you can
from?
record your to-dos on it, and it records everything it listens to and puts it into a transcript. So I'm going to turn
How's that?
I'll send to a transcript form as well.
If you can improve,
You know,
if you can
and that's
improve
coming.
10
That
times
doesn't
the
launch
amount
till
of the
September.
cost of
There's a
something,
more expensive version you can buy right now, but could you imagine turning all of this into a transcript?
that's it. That's the end.
Using
I don't know
AI.
what you're doing.
Your whole life? That's kind of creepy.
Isn't it? I know, isn't that crazy?
So I guess in your mind,
Yeah. I
all
also
money
want
is
to even get
fungible.
those Facebook glasses where
So
you could like
theoretically,
instantaneously upload from your
everybody, which is
glasses to
another thing you
Instagram.
mentioned, and just be the whole
You know,
The military budget.
You mentioned
It's just
before,
ridiculous
No,
how
I didn't. No, I
stupid
didn't. I
social
didn't
is,
mention the
how it's
military
all
budget at all.
spam.
It's not
Like,
relevant.
if you consume it, you're the victim. If
What
you
I'm doing
project
is,
it,
I'm doing what you're
you're
doing,
less of
which
a
is comparing
victim
this
and more of a
expenditure to other
distributor.
expenditures, which
But
may or
if
may
you
not
think
be
the
relevant.
Jews, you know,
No,
Depending on what
I compared it to
I'm
was
just
the
saying like there's
expenditure
a
that
Jewish
we're
legacy in the
currently
history of
using to
filmmaking.
like
And so it's like I say embrace all this technology, and
deploy
especially
Trump's
with what you do,
weird,
dude. I mean,
wrong-headed
dude, if you
immigration
had those
policies.
meta glasses
That
and you were
same money
filming
could have
yourself
been
like on
used or
your
approved
business,
for a
you know,
different purpose, which is
experiences,
adjacent
and
to
you
what
were
it's being
filming
used
with the
for.
glasses.
But
See, if
military
you could,
budgets aren't really
basically,
relevant
you
to
become
what
like a
we're talking about
photography
because we're talking
teacher.
about
You know,
budget
I'm
for
a
immigration
creator. I'm telling you,
policies.
dude, you could have a big
Yeah.
business in
So then you
filmmaking.
have to understand what
And
the goal is
it's
of
the
the
one
policy.
thing that people come out
Actually, what the
from
goal is,
nowhere
that's
and
not what's
achieve
in
incredible
dispute here.
success.
We're not debating what the
Spielberg,
goals are. You're trying to
George
switch the
Lucas.
subject to that,
Like,
but
yeah,
you
they
clearly
went to
lost
film
this debate.
school
We're
and like they
debating
made cool
the
sets and filmed
veracity
all
or
this
lack
stuff,
thereof
but
two stupid claims
the
you
new
made.
span and the
One,
new
that
theater
it
is
is too
definitely gonna be
expensive to
cell
increase the
phones.
amount of
There's
law
nothing,
judges by roughly 1,000.
people
Really,
don't even wanna
in
go to the
general,
movie
you
theater
said that,
anymore.
but
I
I
don't.
specified
Not
1,000 because I
necessarily.
gave us something the budget amount. It would cost
Anyways,
$1.83 billion
this is
specifically
Back
to
Americans to
increase
John
the
Kitover
immigration
for
judges by
Congress.
1,000. And the second claim that you made was
16th
false
District,
that
Illinois
it was
against the
impossible to do
rhinologist,
so. That's not
vaccinologist,
true.
and super deck creator Darren LaHood. Let's doge the hood rap and fork it over for
by
Kitover.
hiring more
But
judges.
it was a specific problem you were speaking on. You were speaking about the backlog of immigration cases,
Okay.
right? Were you not?
Well, yeah,
And when you said
He
when you
just
said
said
it was
backlog.
impossible too expensive, you were wrong.
Backlog.
Yeah. So are there 10 to 20 million?
Wait. So
potential
you
cases?
just so now's the time for you to admit you were wrong.
No, I'm disputing your numbers.
Okay, but don't do that. First, start by admitting you were wrong about the claims you made because you're wrong.
Okay.
Clearly wrong about the claims you just made. You're arguing in circles to avoid it, and you're trying to change the subject. That's what I'm not letting you do. What's going to happen in a minute is I'm going to lose my patience, and you're going to end up in the goo, which is what I think you're hoping for right now.
Okay.
You're trying to say
It
things,
seems very
two
important
stupid
to
things
you
that I just
to
talked about.
somehow beat Norm. I got it.
Norm, I don't.
Yes.
I just want you to concede basic shit.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you never do. You always say dumb shit, you get debunked, and then you fucking move on.
Sure.
That's annoying as shit.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, it is neither impossible nor too
believe
expensive.
that.
It is neither impossible nor too expensive to increase the amount of immigration judges by 1,000. It's not. It's just not. You admit that. That's a fact.
You said it a few times. I completely dispute your position. Top
Okay.
to bottom.
So then you're saying that something that's false is true. Then, is what it seems like.
No. No, I'm saying that what you said is false.
I just said the opposite of what you said. So you're implying that what you said was true, but it's not.
Yeah. I have a different understanding of the scope of the problem than you do. And of the numbers
That
involved.
doesn't mean you're not wrong. That doesn't mean your statements are false.
Okay.
Your statements are false. Like what?
Right.
What are you doing right now, Norm?
I'm disagreeing with you, which seems to make you
If
more
you come on
comfortable.
stage right now, you're not coming back up for the rest of the fucking room. That's what you're
Okay. Okay.
annoying shit, Norm. You lost on this, and it's not even a big deal. Like I don't know why you're dying on this hill. It's weird.
I'm definitely not going to die.
I said, I don't know why you're dying on this hill. It's a figure of speech, Norm. I'm not saying literally. I'm saying, why are you digging your feet down and being a fucking obstinate asshole for no reason? Like, you don't have to die on this hill. You can still have your ultimate opinions about what the fucking nuances of good immigration policy are without pretending like it's true that it is impossible or too expensive to increase the amount of judges in our immigration system by 1,000. Because it's not. It'll cost 1.8 billion. We've already approved 150 billion, damn near 10 times that, to address other adjacent issues. So, like, what are you not getting about how you lost this debate? Like, I don't understand why you're doing this. This is weird. It's a waste of time and energy.
Okay. I think it sounds like you need to vet. Will you admit that you don't have an authority?
Last chance to were your 2 claims false or not? Last chance, because I'm long losing my paper.
100% not.
You're lying, and you're not on stage for this. Fucking this. I can't with that dumb shit. Oh my face. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen of the room, when you grow up, don't be like this. Don't be so like unwilling to admit that you had a dumb thought or something that's wrong in your belief system that you'll die. Stupid head. You say something wrong, just admit it, bro. I think your life would be a lot better.
Has it ever occurred to you that people have figured out how you debate? And it just becomes a battle of wills.
Battle of what?
Wills.
Okay, no, is that your theory about what happened here? Or was Norm just wrong?
No, you know Norm knows how to debate. You know Norm
Yeah,
knows.
but was Norm right or wrong?
It doesn't matter.
It does.
Did you ever say thank you for not smoking?
Was Norm right or wrong?
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
In a battle of wills.
This is not about debate. This is not about debating. I don't give a fuck about debating. I
And
don't
now
give a
you're
fuck about acknowledging the truth.
you're arguing with
I know.
me.
Was Norm right or wrong?
It doesn't matter.
Okay,
And now
last
you're
time,
arguing
was Norm
with
right or
me.
wrong, Alan? Last chance. Last chance. Last fucking chance.
Really?
You're off the fucking stage too for the rest of that. I'm not gonna deal with that dumb shit, bro. Like, he was clearly wrong. You don't have to deny that he was wrong in order to kind of like make some stupid point about the idiosyncrasies of my debating style. The fuck? It's not even about that. He said a false thing. I demonstrated it was false. At that point, the only move he had to maintain integrity was to concede. He didn't concede. He's gone. Same with you. The fuck are you talking about? I'm not trying to engage you in a conversation about the idiosyncrasies of debate. You don't know shit about debate anyway. The fuck are you doing? Stop moving the goalposts.
Muse, I'd have to disagree with you on this one. I don't think you can actually come to a conclusion until you do the math. And, did you guys do the math, or did I miss it?
Yeah, I did the math.
I think that Trump's strategy is a lot more effective. Voluntarily getting people to leave that know that they're not going to win their case anyway, and then creating deterrence to prevent, to incentivize people to leave. Is better than.
Just to be clear.
Well, okay, so you're saying that we need to hire 1,000 more judges, but it might actually be
No, I wasn't saying that. I'm saying that it's not impossible, nor is it too expensive to do so.
right?
That's all I've said so far. I'm not advocating, or I haven't been advocating one way or the other.
Oh, so you're just saying that that's a good idea, or that's a possible idea. That's the point you were
I
trying
didn't
to
say
make.
anything about whether it was a good idea or not. I said it wasn't. Two things. It's not too expensive to do so, and it's not impossible to do so, which is what norms are. And then I did the math to demonstrate that. You made an inference, a fallacious one, but an inference. Nonetheless, it's understandable. And I was advocating for that, and I never did say that or argue that at this point. It's not really clear that you disagree with me, unless you're saying it's too expensive or impossible. Are you saying that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My Wi-Fi went out for a second. I only heard the last thing you said.
Yeah, I mean, the only way you can really disagree with me in terms of me and Norm arguing over is if you think that it is impossible or too expensive to increase the amount that we have right now. Or really any number, because he didn't specify a number. I just.
Well, I know I heard you say 1,000, but how many judges do we have now?
700.
700, so it'd be doubling that.
Yeah. Double, yeah. Is that impossible or too expensive?
Well, the thing is too, so you have a backlog, right? So you hire these 1,000 judges, and then once you get immigration under control, you fire those 1,000 judges, or what do you do with those judges now?
You can do any number of things. If you want to take into account the fact that once you get to a certain threshold, you won't need as many judges. You can phase them out over a certain time period, maybe a 10-year period following. Maybe you increase them for 10 years and then phase them out for the next 10 years or something like that.
Yeah, so
that didn't answer the question. Like, do you think it's too expensive or impossible to do this? Because that's what me and Norm are, remember.
Like Norm was saying, the first thing you start with is the budget, and the budget seems to be whether it makes sense or not, right? Not only
Is it
whether
too expensive or impossible? This is a yes or no question. But that's the only way you really can disagree with me. That's all I was like.
Yo,
Well, I
Chris,
think it depends
I'm
on who
stepping
you
out
ask.
to go to the gym.
I did that. That was my bad. It depends on who you ask.
Yes. Because a lot of people don't think that spending that much money on defense is worth it, right? So you'll hear a lot of people.
I'm not asking you to evaluate whether you should do it. I'm asking you whether it would be too expensive or not. That's all I'm asking.
Well, I like Trump's approach.
I understand that, but you didn't ask the question. Is it too expensive or is it impossible? Yes or no?
It's not impossible.
Okay, so Norm loses on that. Is it too expensive?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
The correct answer is no, it's not. Because it would only cost $1.83 billion a year, and we've already approved $150 billion, which is almost 10 times that for the purposes of building detention facilities and hiring a shit ton of ICE agents. So clearly it's not. But like, that was what we were arguing over. Clearly he was wrong. And he wouldn't admit it, which is why he's no longer in the room. So that's how that went down. What up, Serendipity?
Hey.
Yeah, bro.
I'm catching up. It looks like there's currently about 600 judges in employ, and Congress approved for there to be a total of 800.
Yeah. They were estimating 700. Trump's like firing them though, so I don't know what the net impact is.
Yeah, it says the net impact is 103 total.
That have been fired?
Yes.
That's ironic. So then,
Yeah.
in effect, that Trump's policy amounts to replacing 100 judges, not increasing the overall amount by them.
Correct. Well, he's
And let me get a bite of that.
He's increasing what was the original amount by 100, but he's also fired 100. So there's going to be 200 new ones. Yeah. Let me send it.
Or you can just put it in the chat, whichever you want for me.
I'll pop it right here.
Thanks. All right.
But that in itself, deterrent, wouldn't you say, Black Muse?
A deterrent for what?
For immigrants,
Judges?
yes. For immigrants to not come or leave the country.
I guess if they perceived the firing of judges as a attempt to put judges in place who are more likely to not approve of their claims or not rule in their favor, and I guess that would deter them.
Yeah, I'm saying,
But
go ahead.
I'm just saying, it just seems like there's a lot of other things that are way more likely to deter the bad, but I mean, I guess it's possible.
Yeah, got rid of judges, right? Ramping up ICE, right? Sending hardcore criminals to being able to send them to any country that you want. Those are deterrents.
Not any country that they want, that's not true. But they can send them to a bunch of countries that are not the country.
Undesirable. How about an undesirable country? How about that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any country that's not their country might be considered that, but yeah.
Exactly. But some are worse than others. I mean, I'm sure people would rather go to Australia than to go to Uganda, right?
Yeah, I think South Sudan is one of the ones that they're actually sending people, whether they're from there or not. So, yeah. I mean, they're deterrents, but they're also, in many cases, violations of basic human rights. So that's a problem. We should probably talk about that at some point. That's one of the reasons why I would object to these policies, because even undocumented people have rights, fortunately. But with this topic of the room, Trump's firing immigration judges is on a partisan basis, or to ensure that his agenda is complied with, is problematic, because judges are supposed to be independent. They're not supposed to do the bidding of the president. If Joe Biden had done something like this, y'all right-wingers would lose your fucking minds. And it'd be because you would be willing in that instance to recognize the principle, which is, this is some fuck shit. Presidents aren't supposed to dictate how judges rule the immigration court. It's pretty dictatorial, if you ask me. And so that's why I wanted to bring it to the attention of the people in the room. I think that this is a bad move from the administration. And it's likely just going to backfire. All you really need is a Democrat in office who's willing to do all the same fuck shit that Trump does, but in the other direction. And then all of you people who are singing his praises right now, you're going to lose your goddamn minds. You're going to bitch and moan. Because at that point, you'll realize that shit backfired on your ass. So I don't know why we're going down this road. This is not good in general.
Yeah, but isn't that how we got here? That's why we're here now. The Democrats for the last 4 years.
Both sides have been going back and forth as the pendulum has swung back and forth for way longer than 4 years. But yeah, that is how we got here, and it's stupid, and we should stop. It just makes it worse for the country. But both sides feel enabled and emboldened because all they got to do is sit back and pretend like the other side started it, and that their side didn't have any hand in it before that, which is a lie most of the time. And it's a lie in this instance. So I don't know. This naked partisan, like, polarizing shit is not healthy, bro. It doesn't result in good policy at all.
Yeah, that's why I like just having the border open like that is a major issue, because basically it created a humanitarian issue, right? So a lot of us feel that way.
The humanitarian issue predates the quote-unquote open border policies of Biden, to be fair. But yeah, Biden's policy was trash. Like, I have no problem admitting that. That's obviously true. So most people in America were against him on that, so his punk ass lost, or I guess Kamala lost. Like, we get it, but it didn't help. It doesn't help for Trump to do these naked power grabs and try to, like, dictate how immigration judges are gonna rule, bro. Like, that's not a good move. That doesn't help the situation at all.
So
It undermines the perception that federal judges' judgments are impartial.
Do you think that judges shouldn't be fired?
I'm not talking that. No, I don't think judges should be fired. There's a bunch of reasons that are good reasons for judges to be fired. I don't think judges should be fired because they're not obliging by the dictates of the president. That's a bad reason to fire a judge. And that's what it seems like are the reasons these judges are being fired. Don't you agree?
No, because I haven't seen why they were fired. So I'm not going to assume.
Why were they fired? Why do you think they were fired? Why do you think they were fired then?
Well, I'm actually assuming that it was some bias is the reason he was able to get rid of them. He probably wanted to get rid of even more of them. Probably can only find
just making shit up. They're just making shit up.
Let me ask you a
Well, that's
question.
what you did. You just said it seems that way. So
I did say it seems that way. You said you're assuming shit.
yeah, I'm assuming that the firing was justifiable. Otherwise, it'd be lawsuits and big deals made about it. So I'm assuming that they had a reason to say this is why we're firing you.
You're just making shit up. Got it. All right. I mean, that's how you want to think about it, but you should try to look into it.
So let me ask you a question, Muse. The immigration judges are administrative judges that fall under the executive branch. So you don't think that, given that they're not part of the actual judiciary, he wouldn't have cause to want to have judges that would support his immigration policies?
No. This isn't supposed to be impartial here. They want to go to the executive branch. It's supposed to be independent of the president. Long established.
Then why would they fall under the executive branch instead of the judicial?
Because they're administrative law. That's why. Just because they're under the executive branch doesn't mean that they have to follow the dictates of the president. It's never been true. Well, that needs to be proven to people. I can easily prove that. I mean, decades long, if not centuries long, legal precedent for that.
Hey, serendipity.
You can just Google why immigration judges are supposed to be independent from the president. Just Google that.
Because they work for the Attorney General, and the Attorney General works at the behest of the President.
Right, but they're supposed to be independent of the
So
president.
if the President says to the Attorney General, hey, let's clean this shit up, or you need to trim the fat, yeah, that he's allowed.
He's allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one said he wasn't, dumbass.
Well, you're saying that it's unconstitutional, that it's
No, I didn't
bad,
say it was
or
unconstitutional.
that it looks bad and all this kind of.
No, I didn't say that either. What I said, what it does, which it in fact does, is it undermines the judiciary's ability to seem impartial for their judgments, which it does. That's a bad thing, isn't it?
Oh no, I want to pack the courts.
Okay, well then you're just an idiot. That's fine.
How am I an idiot?
Because you're not acknowledging basic fucking facts about how that undermines how judges are able to operate, even in the executive branch as administrative law judges. Like their independence is crucial because if a critical mass of people who view the judgments of these judges as biased, right? Then you hinder faith in the system. That's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Why would you want that?
So we can win.
So who can win?
Oh, conservatives.
Okay, so the rest of the country goes to shit. Yeah, you're an idiot.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're an idiot. That's all.
I hope we pack the courts.
Yeah, I know what you want.
It
Yeah,
looks
I
like
we
a
get a
lot of
national
states.
ban on abortions.
You're allowed to be an idiot. We have a free country to so far.
You know,
I would just say as a tomato, if you don't mind. I don't know what the details of the justifications for the firings were, but I don't really need to make this point. It's just that, the civil service protections that are in place, which by the way are in place for immigration judges, just like they're in place for any other employees in the federal government. Those are legal protections put in place by Congress and signed by the president. And so it is, in a sense, unconstitutional. It's certainly illegal if it violates the statute, right? And to violate the statute would be a violation of separation of powers principles. So I'm not making a claim about the firing of these judges in particular. What I am pointing out is that the unitary executive theory is not the one that we live under currently. So to say that the president has plenary power over every single person in the executive branch to fire them at will is incorrect and is in fact stating what is commonly understood to be an unconstitutional claim about how our government works.
Damn, I guess it'll have to be viewed by the Supreme Court justices, and we'll find out if you're right or.
It actually has been before. So, for example,
Yeah, but when the next lawsuit comes up, Tucker wins the neck.
Are you going to talk over me because you can't
Shut the fuck up when people are talking. He's the better what he's done. I already got it. He's doing it. He'll come in later.
Yeah, that would be helpful. So there's lots of examples of this. The justices and courts below the justices, have dealt with a lot of personnel actions by the courts. So there's actually lots of case law on this. So the most high-profile example, which I was going to give, is Humphrey's executor, which was where the court looked at removal protections for multi-member bodies, particularly in that case the FTC, and ruled that those protections are constitutional. Now, it is correct to say that this Supreme Court has a different view of the scope of legality of removal protections, and they are changing our understanding of what is legal and illegal. And so that is changing, right? But if you go down into the executive bureaucracy, what you find is that many courts across, all the circuits have upheld civil service protections, and there's really no debate about the constitutionality of civil service protections. Like the difference between Humphrey's executor and mainline employees is that Humphrey's executor is talking about the absolute top level, executive branch officials who, in some conception, have a direct line of responsibility to the president, versus people who are 4 or 5 levels deep into the civil service.
Bring him back up. He's kind of hiding in the audience because he has that matching background. Bring him up.
So I guess we'll just have to see how the Supreme Court rules.
I can't hear you because other people talking. I say you use this. So I said to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a weird answer, right? I can make a claim that I don't know, everyone who says Nazi propaganda on the internet is going to be thrown in jail without any due process, and then you could say, well, that's not constitutional, and I'll say, well, let's see how the Supreme Court rules, right? It's not an answer to the question.
I mean, it is actually an answer to the question.
Not really.
Okay, bro. Have a good day.
That's why it's called a ruling.
No, it just evinces a lack of understanding about current law.
Yeah, definitely. You don't understand jurisprudence. Go ahead, Tuck.
Can you explain any of the procedures or governing law around civil service provisions?
Oh no, I have already explained before you got in here, and then secondly, we're just gonna end up seeing what the Supreme Court rules if there's any lawsuits filed against the Trump administration or the Attorney General for doing what they're. And we'll just see what happens.
I wasn't here, so do you mind re-explaining? Just make it a summary, real quick, of specific procedures and law that govern civil service.
Nope.
He never did.
Okay.
He never will because his dumb as
Oh yeah, I have no doubt he never did and never will. Yeah.
Oh no! I specifically said that the immigration attorneys work for the Attorney General, and the Attorney General works at the behest of the President. So that's all I said.
They don't work for the attorney.
Right, and that doesn't
they're appointed by the Attorney General, and the Attorney General has this lawful authority. He has the constitutional authority to remove them, and the Attorney General works for the behest.
And not for partisan.
He can just fucking find reasons.
It has to be. There's a
that's like you saying Muse.
There's a list of. One second. There's a list of reasons for which
So you asserted an allegation against.
I'm literally in the process of explaining why you're wrong. There's a list of reasons where if they actually explicitly made those the reasons officially, they'd be stricken down as a constitution. You'd probably face some kind of some kind of legal action.
Hey Jason, let me ask you.
There's a list of reasons that there's a list of reasons that are actually there's a list of reasons that are actually legitimate, and he can under those false pretenses.
Well, no, there's millions of reasons.
When really all they want to do is ensure certain outcomes in terms of the way that these judges rule, right? And that's what is being suspected here. This is exactly that. But you're just lying if you're saying that the Attorney General can fire these judges for any reason. That's not true.
Could I ask a humble question, Black, which is, in my observation in my life is that judges have always in the past wanted to respect the precedent and the Constitution. But recently, my observation is that the Democratic Party has encouraged judges to defy Trump, even when Trump is within the Constitution. In other words, the Democrats are glorifying people that defy the Constitution in the interest of defying Trump. And so I hope that the Supreme Court will rule and put this, because it's not good for our democracy to have judges seeking honor and praise by defying the Constitution.
Well, they already did.
Yeah, but the defying of the Constitution goes both ways, and that's the problem.
They did like a week and a half ago.
You can't cite rare cases where Democrats or people on the left glorify kind of thumbing their nose at the Constitution in order to get rulings that they think are more equitable or fair or in some sense compensate for the wrongs of history, which has happened, I acknowledge, and then go, therefore, Trump gets to wipe his ass with the Constitution in the other direction. Like, both are bad. Both should never happen.
I agree with you completely. I've got nothing further to say.
So my objection is really a principled one. I don't think you should violate the Constitution or its principles in general, no matter what side of the aisle you're in.
So I agree with you. Obviously, I agree. But the and again, I'm not defending. I've always denounced Trump as a criminal. But just let me finish what I'm saying. The Democrats have put forth a narrative. Just let me finish. The Democrats have put forth a narrative that America has committed crimes all over the world, and America is forced to accept unlimited immigration as penance. It's like reparations against every country in the world where America invaded and created refugees we have to accept. And there's 900 million, I'm about to land my plane, there's 900 million people that want to move to America. And the Democratic Party, by putting forth this narrative of reparations, means we have to accept 900 million. And I fear, I'm about to land my plane, I fear that these judges have bought into that narrative and they want to let 900 million people in, and we just can't have it. I'll post a link in the room.
So yeah, I think it's an extreme to advocate for every single person in the world who might be considered a refugee to come specifically to America, but they don't fuck shit about that. It's extreme. Like, there should be limits. The limits should be reasonable, but they shouldn't be based in xenophobia. And like, what's really weird in the opposite direction is that the president is dead set on deportation so bad that even to the detriment of our own economy and our own GDP, he's willing to remove people who don't really pose a threat to anybody and who are crucial to our economy. That's fucking retarded in the other direction. Both are stupid. Both should not happen.
So I do think that Oh, go ahead, man. I was going to change the topic.
Oh, I just wondering why Tomato thinks these 16 immigration judges, or whatever the number is, why he thinks they've adopted a open borders ideology.
Well, I'll answer you. I'll answer you very succinctly until the moderators ask me to shut up. The ideology of leftism is an ideology of hatred of America and an ideology of immigration as punishment, right? The idea is America sinned. It's a little bit like the biblical story. I'm answering you.
No, you're not. Real quick, I don't need your explication of the ideology as you see it. What I'm asking is why you think these specific judges who were fired have adopted the ideology.
Okay, I'll answer you very succinctly. If you look at the individual refugee cases, and I'm going to be very brief here, all the refugee laws say people who have a legitimate fear of political persecution deserve to come to America. And most of us agree every single refugee should be allowed. But what these judges have done is They have ruled in cases where people were clearly coming to America for economic reasons, they feel poor, right? I'm living in Panama, I feel poor. I'm living in Honduras, I feel poor. The refugees people are lying, and it's obvious that they're lying, and they're claiming political persecution. And in fact, all the liberal NGOs and nonprofits are coaching people to lie. So that's why it's perfectly legitimate to bring this to the Supreme Court, because I think there's ample evidence that judges are aiding and abetting fake asylum seekers, and that's why we have millions and millions of fake asylum seekers living here. Now I'm going to go to the audience, because you don't want to fucking hear what I have.
So I was gonna say real quick.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know why Tomato is mad, but I went and I looked up the specific judges that were fired, right? And I don't know if you guys talked about this before I got here, but they have like relatively high asylum grant rates, right? When you look at the individuals that they pick, that in California are hovering around 90%.
So what?
What was that?
So what?
Wait, but let me get to my point, right? So what I was gonna say before was essentially like, it is difficult to just like, it makes them seem like they're being targeted, right? Specifically because they are processing asylum rates at a higher percentage. We're not in the courtroom. I don't know what these cases are, where they're getting these specific clients, but I think that the whole point of, you know, having these judges is that it's part of their job to assess the information and then make a decision. So. And it kind of follows, my point was going to be, it does kind of follow Trump's approach of retaliating against anybody who doesn't do what he wants. And I think Republicans have this notion that they're going to be in control forever. Whenever the Democrats get back in control, I need these fuckers to be just as aggressive with what they want to do and retaliating against Republicans in the same way Trump is doing, and now we've normalized, right? That was going to be my broader point.
The mere fact that there are some judges who rule in favor of asylum claims above some kind of national average doesn't prove shit. But it's being taken as somehow indicative that the judges are ruling the right way. And on that basis, it seems they're being targeted for firings. I think that's the fuck shit I was referring to. That's not cool. That's nowhere in the Constitution.
I mean, they could just be like these two borders from people who live. California judges are obviously going to have more asylum cases compared to someone in a different part of the country.
Yeah, I mean, or there just could be like a surge in those jurisdictions of people with legitimate claims. That can also explain that. But the point is, it's being taken as an indication by some to justify this onward move in our government, just to target people who aren't ruling in a certain way and are consistent with the current administration's political objectives. Fire them for that reason and no other reason. Pretend like it's legit because they just did it. Dare anybody to challenge them because they're going to be expected to challenge in court, and then just move on. Like a government that operates like that is not operating under the principles that make our government fair or free or democratic or any of that shit. And so to celebrate it because the person who's doing the fuck shit is on your team is fucking stupid. Because as was pointed out by Mother, all you need is a Democrat administration that's just as willing to do the same fuck shit you're doing, and then you're gonna fucking lose your goddamn minds. Like, they never think it'll happen to them until it happens to them. That shit is fucking retarded, bro. Like, this is bad governance.
I think Democrats should be taking notes on how this is being done. They should come in with the same stack of executive orders and undo everything Trump has done day one when they take it into power. And I find
they already did that.
Not great for
they did that the first time. They did that in 2020. So like, no, Democrats should not take notes. Democrats.
Why not?
Because doing the fuck shit is the problem. I don't give a fuck if it's a Democrat or a Republican. Fuck all of team red, team blue, dumb shit. It's making our government worse.
I mean, I do think it is making the government worse, but then you just wipe out.
Why advocate for it?
You wipe out most of his accomplishments in one day, and I think that's one.
But the goal is not to wipe out the accomplishments of their predecessor. The goal is to fucking oblige by the fucking principles of our goddamn Constitution.
So we're getting to a point in this country where you legislate via executive order in most cases, and therefore you have if that's going to be the norm, Democrats should use it to their advantage. If we're not going to, Congress is not going to do shit.
But that's bad governance. That's why they shouldn't do it, because it's bad governance.
I think
You're basically, this is the way a child thinks. He did it to me, so I get to do it to him. Like, what the fuck is that shit, bro?
okay.
More or less.
I'm a grown ass man. I don't need to.
I know, but you're articulating the rationale.
What I'm saying is use the weapons that you have available at your disposal.
To the detriment of the entire fucking country? That's retarded.
Wait, were you guys complaining about the 65 immigration judges that the Biden administration fired?
The problem is, Congress actually do their job and legislature get through Congress, right?
Yeah, Congress should do their job. That's fine.
Or you rely on executive. Congress has shown their inability to get nothing fucking done. This is why we have this immigration problem. It's been in their pipeline for 40 fucking years.
That's an excuse. That's an excuse.
Wait, so were you guys?
That's an excuse.
Muse, were you guys complaining?
The point is, if it's bad to do for Republicans, it's still bad for Democrats. Period.
Muse, were you complaining when the 65?
I'll give you in a second when I'm done talking.
When the 60.
If you don't mind,
Calm the fuck down.
Grown people are talking. Go ahead, bud.
Oh no, I was gonna say, like, here's the bigger issue, right? Is that we have essentially have one branch of government that moves too fucking slow for the rest of the nation, right? And so if you're not gonna fix problems through legislation, what is the alternative to at least make some?
But you're not making progress by putting band-aids on broken legs every fucking presidential term. That's the point. Like, this is all you're doing is kicking the can down the road, and it's getting worse and worse the longer you do it. Things that are the most appropriate for Congress to fix need to be fixed by Congress, period.
I mean, I agree with that. I just don't think, like, I'm taking the realistic approach of if they haven't done it in 40 years, what exactly is going to be the plan to get it done? I would prefer an immigration bill to go through Congress. I would love that. It's not.
Do you think that norming on reliance of like the overreach of executive power is a good way to get Congress off their ass? Like, is that efficacious in getting what you think should be done?
No, I think it gives them cover to not do anything further.
Exactly.
Because they don't want to take any of the hit politically in their local district, so why not just have Trump do it?
Exactly. Which is another reason, and independent reason why I don't think this is a good approach. I think it feels good temporarily because you get to dunk on the other side you don't like. But that's hollow. It just makes our government topsy-turvy.
You know what? Fuck it. Let's unite with the UK and have a king again.
It's also a bad idea.
I was joking, but yes. I mostly agree with you, Black.
Alright. Bring the other asshole up and let's deal with his weird attempt at a gotcha, because he thinks he ate on that stupid ass plan he was asking me about.
And I was like, his mouth so fucking loud.
The 110 judges that Obama didn't fucking appoint and also fired. And let's see, the 65 that the Biden administration fired. Were you guys complaining about that or no? The immigration judges?
I would complain about those. Yeah. And I have before, but I don't like kind of partisan firing of judges by any executive. It doesn't matter if it's Trump or not. I think I've been very clear about that.
Doesn't it just show that every administration does it?
I do believe that, yeah.
Yeah. Can you drop
every administration I think does fire judges. I don't know if they always do it in a partisan way, but it's definitely plausible. I do think Joe Biden did it in a partisan way. I'm not sure about Obama's. I'm just not familiar with the cases. So if I could be allowed to research them a little bit, I might feel the same way.
Tucker, I'm not your fucking legal aid.
Can you drop a link?
Yeah, I'm not your legal aid. Sorry.
I looked on Google.
Yeah, you should type in how many fucking immigration judges. How many immigration judges? How many immigration judges did the Biden administration fire?
That's exactly what I typed in. Apparently, we're in.
Yeah, and it says recent reports suggest approximately 65 immigration judges have been fired by the Biden administration.
Okay, is that over?
If you use Google AI. Google AI.
He appointed 187, so he actually.
Yeah, I bet he appointed the right ones that he liked to.
Okay, is that over 4 years? Or in a short time period?
He seems to be talking about 66 federal judges that Biden vetoed. 66 that Biden vetoed. In terms of firing, I'm not seeing that number.
Yeah, so Google AI says that they're fired.
Google AI also told me that Delaware doesn't have any requirements for
the article is
president in their constitution.
I guess a little bit of your legal aid, PBS is to report it.
Do you put it in the chat real quick to make it easier for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
To be frank, I don't believe anything that you
he's
said.
not coming back up either. He's not coming back up either. He's being a fucking troll. If he's not gonna like engage genuinely, I don't want that shit in my room. Like,
yeah,
I was gonna give you credit if you had evidence for your dumbass claims, but you don't know basic shit. So like, what the fuck is the point? You just trying to be a naysayer and a fucking Trump bombler, and it's weird, bro. Like, this administration is guilty of fuck shit, same as the other administrations. You're trying to what aboutism to, my nigga? Like, what is that shit?
I got it. Oh my god, I found it. So, yeah. So sorry, Jared. So Biden vetoes effort to add 66 federal judgeships, which is an effort to add Article 3 judges to the federal court system. Is completely inapplicable to the administrative judges in DOJ looking at immigration cases. Like, it's a completely different thing. And it's unrelated to firings as well. I mean, I'm sure there were firings.
I'm gonna take a look.
This isn't it.
Let me see. Biden fired 65 judges. PBS. He said it was PBS. We'll dig a little deeper, see if I can find something. As immigration court takes back on DOJ Texas, that was 2 days ago. That's just strong. So it's an immigration court, that's just strong. Joe Biden leaves a complicated legacy on the federal courts.
I just posted an AP News thing that I found 66 federal judgeships. It's just like basic reading comprehension.
I don't know if there's something separate he was trying to refer to. So I'm trying to find the PBS thing he was pretending he found. We could have just put it in the chat, but it was being a fucking dumbass. If you want to prove your stupid ass claims, prove your stupid ass claims, bro. Now we gotta go look for your stupid shit. Not finding it. That's annoying.
What I found was that Biden administration decided not to renew the contracts of a total of about 65 immigration judges.
Okay, you put that in the
Okay. Yeah, link for that?
You put that in the, yeah, I'll just review that.
That's different than firing.
Adults interact. It is, but like, the thing is, people who hide like this, usually when you scrutinize their shit, you find that they're full of shit, and that's why they don't want to participate and actually try to prove anything. So that's my guess.
I don't even understand why they deflect. We're talking about the right here and the right now, in real time. You can't do anything about the past but learn from it. So we're talking about the clown that's in office right now, not previous clowns. Right here, right now. How your boy's fucking up.
Well, no, it's fair game to point out past things when the previous administration did something similar, but the people who are complaining about the current administration didn't have anything to say about the previous administration because it reveals hypocrisy. So that's fair game.
But are we learning from it, or is it, well, he did it and I didn't do it? I can see if we were learning from it.
But I mean,
but just a shift.
Let's just assume
for a second. It's meant to point out the hypocrisy of the position, though. That's fair game to me. That makes sense.
I mean, but even let's just assume that hypocrisy is like a 1-for-1, right? Let's assume that the motivations of each administration for non-renewal of contracts or for firing immigration judges is exactly the same.
Sorry, wait, hold on. Teddy, can you post the thing you found in the chat?
Yeah, I'm looking at the news article.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you like forgot or something. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a very basic point, right? The quantum is, like, not comparable. Like, we're talking about, on the one hand, 65, assuming everything else is 1-for-1, right? On the one hand, you have 65 judges over 4 years. On the other hand, the Trump administration is already over 120, if not 130 immigration judges.
7 months in?
Right.
Yeah, I heard 103, but fair enough.
Well, 103, I don't know if that number includes, I heard about 100, and then I was adding the 17 on top of that. So feel free to say it's just 100, whatever, right? But you're talking about a much different case and quanta. So like it's even assuming the hypocrisy, which I do not believe to be a one-for-one comparison. It's not a good analogy.
Well, I mean, we can take into account the difference in, I guess, the amount, because that maybe speaks to the level of egregiousness. That's fine. But they still did the same thing, and they're both wrong, right? So, like, if you didn't say anything about maybe, let's say, the milder wrong with the lesser harm in some calculable way, and then now you got your panties all over the bunch about the slightly harsher one with more harm that's calculable in some way, there's still hypocrisy there.
Sure. Yeah. I haven't gotten to the point where I think there's hypocrisy there. I'd love some links from the people making the claims. It'd be helpful.
Well, I didn't assess it or evaluate it either, but I was basically making space for that kind of criticism, because I actually think those kinds of criticisms generally can be valid. That doesn't mean they're valid every time they're levied. If the differences are really, really, really stark enough, then usually that is the kind of thing, to your point, that would undermine those kinds of arguments. So, if it's like a stark apples to oranges comparison, like, but I do think that this idea that you have to stick with, I don't know, the status quo, and you can't bring up anything like, say, in previous administrations, I don't think that's true. I think that there are a lot of times where it would be valid to compare. So one example of this, just to make it concrete, is under the first Trump term, you had this kind of performativity from the likes of AOC, who was going to what she called concentration camps under Trump, which were immigrant detention facilities, and she was crying and she was complaining about a lot of the similar stuff they were complaining about actually with Alligator Alcatraz, like, oh my God, they're drinking out of the toilet. By which she meant there's like a water dispensary that is connected to a toilet unit, and it's like at the top of the toilet. But the way she said it, she made it seem like they were like drinking out the bowl like dogs and shit, which wasn't true. But the same exact detention facilities, once Biden got in office, became detention facilities all of a sudden. They were no longer concentration camps, despite the fact that they were using exactly the same ways. Now that's that bullshit. That's clearly hypocritical. And so it would make sense if she were to come in a second Trump term and go, oh my God, these are concentration camps again, which she has. Like, you can go, well, hold on, wait a minute. A few years ago, when your guy was in office, they were detention facilities again. The fuck is that? Why are they only concentration camps when the red guy's in office? Like, that to me is fair to point out, because that reveals hypocrisy.
Yeah, I get that. There's hypocrisy everywhere. I'm just focused on this particular claim, and even, whatever. But I'm happy to look at facts. ... If he still exists here, it doesn't seem like it. Although I still have his allies, so maybe they have facts. See, allyship, it's great.
You said just point out that you would have also been right if you said the orange guy.
Yeah. So I was going to. Sorry, this is not relevant to the topic, but it just came to my note and I just want to share it. It says Trump to sign executive order to push cities to curb homeless, sleeping, drug use on the streets. Holy shit. This fucking guy. Holy shit. I don't know what this executive order is gonna do, so I guess we'll do that in another room. Holy shit. Alright, I think at the top of the room I still have the original article. Yeah, I do, okay. So, Trump fired 17 judges. I'm going to get some data on that. I'm going to read a left-leaning source, a right-leaning source, and a centrist source in that order. First left-leaning source is going to be from the AP. They're left-leaning because they're pretty factual, so I like reading them. Okay, Trump administration fires 17 immigration court judges across 10 states, union says. So 17 immigration court judges have been fired in recent days, according to the union that represents them, as the Trump administration pushes forward with its mass deportation of immigrants in the country. The International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, which represents immigration court judges as well as other professionals, said in a news release that 15 judges were fired, quote, without cause, end quote, on Friday, and another 2 on Monday. The union said they were working in courts, so this will be last Friday and last Monday. Monday meaning 3 days ago, and then 6 days ago for 6 days ago for Friday, right? No, 8 days ago. No, 6 days ago. My math is off. I'm sorry. But last week is what this is talking about, and earlier this week for Monday. The union said they were working in courts in 10 different states across the country: California, Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, Ohio, Texas, Utah, and Virginia. Let's see, California's blue as fuck, Illinois blue as fuck, New York's blue as fuck, Utah's blue as fuck. I don't know about Massachusetts, I forget. Ohio, I think is red. Maryland and Louisiana might be red. Virginia, I think is red. Although, did they vote for Kamala? I don't know what the fuck Virginia is. And then New York, and then Texas is red. So, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. So it's kind of 5 are red, 5 are blue, maybe. Unless I'm messing up. Is Maryland blue or red? It's a red state. Maryland's blue? Okay. And then California, Illinois, Maryland. I assume Massachusetts is blue. New York, Utah. Utah's red. Utah's red. Okay. What about Virginia? Is Virginia blue? It's purple. It's purple. Yeah. Okay. Virginia's purple. Utah's red. Texas red. Ohio's red. Louisiana's red. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 red states. 5 blue states. And a purple state. Just for the record. Okay. Well, it's outrageous and against public interest that at the same time Congress has authorized 800 immigration judges, we are firing large numbers of immigration judges without cause, said the union's president, Matt Biggs. Well, this is nonsensical. The answer is to stop firing and start hiring. I agree. Firings come with courts at the center of administration efforts. Firings come as the courts have been increasingly at the center of the Trump administration's hard-line immigration enforcement efforts, with immigration and customs enforcement officers arresting immigrants as they appear in court for proceedings. A spokeswoman for the Executive Office of Immigration Review, which is the part of the Justice Department that oversees the courts, said in an email that the office would not comment on the firings. The large-scale arrests began in May and have unleashed fear among asylum seekers and immigrants appearing in court. And what has become a familiar scene, a judge will grant a government lawyer's request to dismiss deportation proceedings against an immigrant. Okay, hold on. And what has become a familiar scene, a judge will grant a government lawyer's request to dismiss deportation proceedings against an immigrant. Meanwhile, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers are waiting in the hallway to arrest the person and put them on a fast track to deportation as soon as he or she leaves the courtroom. Yeah, that shit is like a whole ass loophole that is totally legal, but totally fucking like immoral or unethical. And they've been taking advantage of that shit for a while now. Immigration court judges are also dealing with a massive backlog of roughly 3.5 million cases. I heard recently it's approximating 4.4 million, so that it's higher than 3.5 million, but I'll go with these numbers because they're pretty accurate usually. So roughly 3.5 million, and technically 3.5 million is technically approaching 4 million. So, all right, 3.5 million cases that ballooned in recent years. Cases can take years to weave their way to a final determination, with judges and lawyers frequently scheduling final hearings on the merits of the case over a year out, unlike criminal courts. The government isn't required to provide lawyers to everyone going through immigration courts. Immigrants can hire their own lawyer if they can't afford one. They represent themselves. Sometimes they've had cases where their children represented themselves as young as fucking 4 years old. Which is weird. Often using an interpreter to make their case. Senator alleges one firing is punishment. Democratic U.S. Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois alleged that one of the judges fired was essentially being punished for talking to him during a visit the senator made a few weeks ago to the Chicago Immigration Court. In a news release Tuesday, Durbin said the judge, quote, took time to show me the court and explained its functions, end quote. He said after the visit, the judge received an email from the Justice Department telling her that all communication with congressional officers should be should be routed through headquarters, and that immigration judges shouldn't be talking directly to members of Congress. Why not? Quote, her abrupt termination is an abuse of power by the administration to punish a non-political judge simply for doing her job, end quote, said Durbin, who's the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Courts are getting a cash infusion. Under recently passed legislation that will use $170 billion to supercharge immigration enforcement, the courts are set to get an infusion of $3.3 billion. That will go towards raising the number of judges to 800 and hiring more staff to support them. The union said that since the Trump administration took office, over 103 judges have either been fired or voluntarily left after taking what was dubbed the fork in the road offers at the beginning of the administration. Okay, so that 103 number is a little complicated because I don't know what percentage of that are people who walked away and people who were fired. So that's a little awkward, but my guess would be most of them walked away on their own. But I don't know that for sure. Okay, the union said that rather than speeding up the immigration court process, Justice Department's firings would actually make the backlogs worse. That makes sense. The union said that it can take as long as a year to recruit, hire, and train the immigration court judges. There are currently about 600 judges, according to union figures. Immigration courts fall under the Justice Department, which is a part of the executive branch, which somebody brought up earlier. All right, that's it. That's the AP. Let's see. The right-leaning one. I don't recognize these motherfuckers. The OC Register.
That's a real newspaper. OC Register is actually a solid paper. I mean, I disagree with their slant, but they're a solid paper.
I was just about to say I haven't read the OC Register in years. I haven't really had a need to. All right, Trump administration fires 17 immigration court judges across 10 states, the union says. So this is the right-leaning one, and then the centrist one I'm going to do is probably Newsweek, unless I see the one from the Hill, because I prefer the Hill. All right, the fires come as courts have been increasingly at the center of the administration's hardline immigration enforcement efforts. 17 immigration court judges have been fired in recent days, according to the union that represents them. As the Trump administration pushes forward with its mass deportations of immigrants in the country, the International Federation of Professional Technical Engineers, which represents immigration court judges as well as other professionals, said in a release that 15 judges were fired without cause on Friday and another 2 on Monday. This is reading like exactly like what I just read. I'm wondering if they just... Oh, this is via the Associated Press. All right, I'm not reading that one. It's like word for word what I just read. I'll try one more time, but otherwise I'll just skip the right one. Let's see.
That's exactly how the PBS article read too.
Yeah, a lot of these are just regurgitating what you call it said. Tribune Courier? The Associated Press, yeah. Okay, so all of these are just parroting the same thing. Okay, so I'm gonna try Newsweek and see if it's the same shit. News green card holders handed big legal win. Okay. The Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Tuesday that the Department of Justice cannot unilaterally revoke a green card. Okay, this is not really related. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna stick with what I read. Everybody's quoting them anyway, and this is starting to annoy me. I was trying to be balanced, but whatever, man. AP's good enough. Yeah. Given the details that I think the AP News reported, I think I'm just diametrically opposed to Republicans on this. There doesn't seem to be any real justification for these moves. This seems like pretty naked power grab. It seems like it's pretty obviously intended to maximize the kinds of judges in immigration courts who would rule along the lines of what the administration wants them to rule. And that is so undermining to what the mission of these judges is supposed to be. They're supposed to be independent. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be grounded in reason and thorough and objective explications of the law and how it applies to people's cases. And this is fundamentally undermining that. And even if the administration was acting in good faith and was really trying to put, really good judges on there to replace the judges that they genuinely think are bad or onto it in some way, and they were somehow able to do that in an unbiased way, like the optics alone are undermining to this, because what it's going to do is it's going to cultivate an expectation that judges rule in a certain way, and that they're doing it based on bias and based on agendas, and not based on like the things they're supposed to be based on. And I think that's just fundamentally undermined. And the fact that these administrative law judges, these immigration judges, are under the executive branch is not an excuse for this kind of action. Because you still need their impartiality as judges, no matter whether they're part of the executive branch or not. There's also the constitutionality of this. I don't know how far it'll go in terms of being challenged in court. It ought to be challenged in court, but there's apparently fair, good faith questions about the constitutionality of this move. I'm just opposed to it on every level. It doesn't make any sense. But a lot of right-winger types are justifying this because they're like, well, the fact that any given judge is way above some kind of national average in terms of the percentage of asylum cases that they've approved, and that somehow is indicative that they're bad judges or that they're, what do you call them, activist judges. Like, first of all, that's not even a fair basis on which to make that judgment because it just doesn't follow logically. That's fallacious. But it does, it's one of those conspiracy theory kind of leaps to conclusions. It's like, yeah, those judges are the ones that are the highest suspects for being activist judges. Like, you'd have to evaluate their cases, and one good way to tell that they're actually being good faith in their judgments is what percentage of their cases survive appeal. That's how you would determine that. One of the judges that got fired, like, north of 90% of her cases survive appeal. So, like, on what basis are you saying she's making wrong judgments exactly? And if you want that to be the standard, if you're a right-winger type, like, so then what percentage of judges are like well below the national average in terms of like the percentage of asylum claims that they approve are way low, right? Or I can flip the question. The percentage of asylum claims that they deny are way above the average. Could a Democrat administration fire all those judges on that basis? Wouldn't it be equally fair? Isn't it exactly the same logic, but kind of gone in the other direction? Would you approve of that? Would that be partisan to you? Would you object to that? And if you would, then I don't understand how you could be on board with this shit going in your direction. Just throwing that out there. What other people?
While people are thinking, I would just point out that there are, by my count, 19 cases underway related to personnel actions. So things adjacent to stuff like this is being actively litigated. Some of it's already made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, but these questions are being asked already.
The way they haven't come out and gave their statement, right? They haven't even offered, the administration hasn't even come out and said why they terminated contract with these judges right now. So that'll be eye-opening to see what it is. All I'm aware of in terms of what they've been doing is the 2023 report that came out of the Office of Accountability and Migration, stating that since 2017 that the backlog of immigration visas has tripled, and that they made a lot of recommendations and they looked at a lot of things in terms of why that backlog was going, and they stated that the circuits that needed to handle these, the immigration courts, needed to improve their standards of flowing these cases through. So I don't know, there seems to be just a growing backlog ever since 2016.
There's been a growing backlog for a couple decades because we haven't had enough immigration judges for a couple of decades. But it's been consistently growing because if you have more and more cases and you don't have the same number of judges and you don't change the immigration law, like, it's going to lead to not being able to adjudicate cases quickly enough. Which is why the one thing that, at least it used to be, that both sides of the aisle agreed on was that we needed more immigration judges. And as it turns out, firing immigration judges is a way to have less judges, not more, as Jason just pointed out.
I'm not discounting that fact. What I'm adding in is the fact that from 2017 to 2023, it tripled. So that significant period of increased immigration, what was causing those backlogs? And
the Office of Accountability said it's the way that the courts are currently managing their dockets and managing that workflow, and that they aren't improving. They aren't taking steps to improve it. So I don't know if this is part of some overall plan to go ahead and do it. We don't know. There's nothing further on it. You don't have the other side's argument on it. All you have is just one AP article. You don't have like what was the administration's plan behind it.
Hey, Brad, do you remember? Sorry. Do you?
That's okay.
I don't know what report you're talking about. Do you remember if they had specific recommendations about how to improve immigration court process?
I'm going off of memory, but they had it with logistics. The overall logistics were trash. It's basically you can go through. I can't even remember how many pages it was, but it was rather long. You'd have to pull it back up, but a lot of it had to do with logistics and the way the judges were handling their dockets and moving. They weren't moving cases fast enough for any administration or any. They were stalling them is basically what they said, and they said they're just moving at too slow a pace.
That's not what they were fired for, according to the union at least.
No one knows what they were fired for because the administration didn't give their rebuttal. It's all speculative.
Well, it's not, because people who have been fired are provided with paperwork, and that paperwork either states a cause or it doesn't state a cause. And according to the union, there was no cause stated.
Isn't that consistent with what he said? They didn't say why they fired him.
I know, but that means that you were fired without cause.
Yes.
Like there wasn't a cause of action that's based on like you sexually harassed your coworker, right? That would be an example of cause.
No, I agree with you. They even had, it was like 3 sentences, and they even like showed it. It's like a news report.
So I have a question. Has anyone worked in the government sector? Are you required to give a cause? Because at PE, you just get fired. They don't tell you why, and you're just gone.
I think for federal judges they are required to.
Oh.
Or if they're not required to by law, it's unusual for them not to.
Oh, okay. I mean, they have.
I can look into it. That's actually a really good question. I actually don't know the norms.
It implicates labor law also. Like there's different kinds of things you're eligible for based on how you're fired.
Okay. I didn't.
Like that's why like getting fired and being laid off are fundamentally different. There's like also with many employers, and I'm sure the federal government this is true of. There's like severance packages that are implicated by this. What's included and never not included. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So those really matters in labor law.
According to Google's AI app receipts, as far as like links they use, if people want them. Says no. So the question is, can immigration judges be legally fired without cause? The answer that they give is no. Immigration judges who are employees of the Department of Justice cannot be legally fired without cause. They are not quote-unquote judges in the Article 3 sense, meaning they don't have lifetime appointments, but they are also not at-will employees. They are appointed by the Attorney General and can only be terminated for cause, such as misconduct or poor performance. Recent reports indicate some judges have been terminated during a probationary period or through a voluntary resignation program, but these are not considered firings without cause. So a lot of those 103 judges took advantage of some kind of offer, which is a voluntary resignation program. And so those are legal. And then some of the judges were on probationary periods. That was actually reported earlier today. But there was one particular judge, I think from San Francisco, who was fired without cause, and who also had been working for like 8 years or 10 years, well beyond the probationary period. So her case is actually interesting because that seems to be illegal. So I'm glad we went down this road. I didn't know this before. I just read it right now.
So also the overarching goal is to have an orderly immigration system. This does not contribute to that, right? Like if we're already at the very least pushing norms beyond their limits and probably breaking laws. And also it runs counter to processing asylum claims with any kind of pace, which again is another thing that would lead to a more orderly border. It seems, and I could go on, like there's a lot of reasons why this is actually not helping any sort of border crisis or immigration crisis.
So the union contract for judges includes a 2-year probationary period. I don't know how standard that is, but a lot of different federal employees are on the probationary period. And that's the mechanism through which a lot of the early firings have been justified by the administration, because there's fewer protections for people on their probationary period. So I don't know if that helps, Mother.
No, that helps. That explains some of the judges, but there's this one judge who's been working for over like 8 years. She's well beyond the probationary period. And I gotta find this fucking thing that I watched earlier.
That's generally true, and I'm reaching the limits of my knowledge on civil service protections pretty quickly here. Just one thing I'll flag is that in some circumstances, when people are promoted, their probationary period restarts because it's tied to their service in the new position. And so there have been circumstances of people who've worked at an agency for a long time, who were in a probationary period when Trump assumed office because they were recently promoted.
So that might apply to this judge then?
I don't know, but I'm just pointing out an exception to your rule.
No, it's good that you pointed that out, because that is something I need to consider. Sorry, I'm literally trying to copy and paste her name. Fuck it, I'm just going. I found her name. Her name is Judge Isla Dice. She's a San Francisco-based judge. It was reported in one of our local news, clip of which they put on YouTube. So here's the clip. Judge Isla Dice. Yeah, I might have misspelled her last name, but I didn't misspell her first name. Judge Isla Dice. So her case is intriguing because she had been working for more than 2 years, she might have been outside of the probationary period. But if it's possible to still be in the probationary period because for some reason you start over as a judge for whatever reason by the time the current administration got in office, then maybe she was, and maybe her firing wouldn't violate any laws. Another thing I'm seeing here that I saw the opposite of before is it says that the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, that's the what the fuck is it called? The union, that's the name of the union. According to this, which it could be wrong because it's the AI, it says that they said that those terminations were not without cause. But I read in AP that they actually said the opposite, that they said that they were without cause. So I'm confused.
An interesting note on Judge Dice is, according to the Transactional Records Access, she granted asylum in about 92% of the cases that came before her between 2019 and 2024.
Yep, she did.
Yeah.
But to me, that's not a good reason to fire her. And also, if that was the stated cause, that wouldn't be accepted.
So does anyone actually know what a quote-unquote standard rate is? Do they know if she's somehow specialized in one way or another that would lead to the percentage being higher? Like, there's a lot of... Yeah, like, the number is meaningful, but it's hard to know what the meaning is.
Yeah, the national average is around 33%.
Okay, but do we know that she has, like, a standard caseload as well? Like, there's nothing different about who she's saying?
Oh, no, I don't know. I don't know that, no. I just know the basic calculus is she's way above the national average, therefore. And then there's a bunch of, like, implied things, like, that aren't even explicitly stated. But it was explicitly... So the quiet part was stated out loud by a Black conservative. He has a podcast called Black Conservative Perspective. His name, I think, is Greg Foreman. He's the inspiration for this room, because his argument to me was shitty. It was a terrible argument. But basically what his argument was is, well, come on, you know that this is an activist judge. How in the hell can their approval rating of asylum claims be that much above the national average unless an activist judge? And then he played an interview of her, which I actually saw kind of, like on my own. And she made a comment to the effect of, like, I'm not ashamed of showing people compassion. And then he goes up. See, there you go. So she's ruling based on emotion. She's not ruling based on the things a judge is expected to rule on. You know, like an objective assessment of the law and how it applies to people. Blah blah blah. She's ruling based on emotion. She's clearly an activist judge, and her emotions are getting in the way. All of this, by the way, was just totally fallacious reasoning. But it is the kind of thing that people who support this think, whether they're willing to say it out loud or not. And so I suspect, although I'm not a mind reader, that members of the administration who are doing this or who are advocating for this or who are like actually like taking steps in their official capacity to pull this off think something akin to that. Just throwing that out there. It's a supposition, let's say.
So it's a weird claim that judges shouldn't have compassion. That's very bizarre. In fact, they should, and they're encouraged to in many, many cases. It doesn't mean they should be driven exclusively by compassion, but they certainly should be driven by it in asylum claims. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I just think that I was trying to give voice to the way the argument was given. The way it was given, it was like compassion means that she's ruled by her emotions. So her judgments must be capricious. And I'm saying that's a fucking fallacy. It's not like people can have compassion and still rule within the law. And one of the biggest things that she pointed out in her interview that was, I think, a great counter argument is north of 90% of all of her cases survive appeal. Like that's some indication that she's not pulling shit out of her ass. This is actually standard way to determine. It's not the only way, but it's a standard way to determine to what extent judges are kind of having specious rulings and shit like that. And some of the judges that this administration has supported have had way less like appealing records in terms of like the amount of their like cases that survive appeal.
That brings up an interesting
like that one weird justice that was, I think she was approved by Trump, Mora or whatever. What the fuck was her name? Tuka, you know what I'm talking about. Tuka's not in here anymore. God damn it. Never mind. I'll drop it because I'm not gonna be able to figure it out. Go ahead.
What's the rate at which Trump's attorneys are actually appealing these decisions, the unfavorable decisions from these immigration judges they don't like?
I don't know. Nationwide?
It's probably.
Are they auto appealing everything?
Yeah, but that would have barely even been adjudicated yet. Like these courts with backlogs, then being appealed. Like how many cases have even been able to go through and then go through a full appellate process, like or full appeal? Like I can't imagine that's very big.
And the judge I was just talking about has been a judge for at least 8 years, so she'd be able to have a higher number than most. Particularly the probationary ones that have only been doing it for 2 years.
And that also goes back to Trump too. Trump, first time.
Yeah.
Also, since this is a civil thing, are they required to be lawyers, or is this like an arbitration civil matter, kind of like an FTC deal?
And what the immigration judges?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're basically administrative law judges. They have to be a member of the bar and everything.
I don't know that looking at her appeals would be a
Eileen
good
Cannon.
gauge.
That's what I was talking about. I was talking about Eileen Cannon this whole time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think that looking at her appeal rate, though, would necessarily be a good gauge of whether she was following the law, because if she's approved 90+% of her asylum cases, who's appealing those? Nobody's appealing those, so she would have a naturally low appeal rate.
I mean, yeah, the number would be low, but the percentage of them that survive is what she's saying. So let's say she only had like 30. If 90% of 30 of her cases survived appeal, then it's still 90% of 30. I guess the logic is there's some indication that she's not like going that far out of the bounds of the law, because presumably if she was in flagrant ways, it would be easier to win those appeals. It's the basic logic.
What would be interesting to see is if the 2023 study held up, and if these judges were the ones with the vast majority of backlog cases, like they had the highest dockets, and they weren't moving at any kind of pace. Then I could see like letting them go, saying you're just not moving fast enough. You're not able to adjudicate these faster.
I mean, yeah, but she's adjudicated a bunch of cases. I don't remember what the number was, but that's not an issue with this particular judge, Judge Isla, whatever the fuck.
Well, the issue is that she made the wrong decisions.
Yeah, but based on what? That's conjecture at this point.
Well, based on what the people...
Is it wrong because it didn't go the way that the administration would prefer? That's a hell of a standard. And if it was wrong in some kind of detectable way, shouldn't it be detectable upon appeal? And then wouldn't the percentage of her rulings that survived appeal be lower? Or sorry, that survived appeal, be lower. Yeah, like that's the point. Bringing it up.
So
can I reply?
Oh, go ahead, David.
I'd rather not talk to you, David. You know me.
Okay. I want to say that by your. Can I say something real quick? I wanted to say, so I actually was curious, like when we talk about like people that have 90s or whatever percentage, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I asked my little friend ChatGPT, which I know is not always 100% accurate, what is the average asylum approval rate percentage? And according to this that I'm looking at, and I know I should go to the direct links, it says on average judges have 39 to 40% approval, depending on the country of origin. Like if you have a docket that has a significantly higher amount of cases from Afghanistan, Venezuela, or Syria, those hover around 85 to 90%. So it is interesting when you look at that or you think about that, like what are other judges approving, what is their specific situation like? Because that could be
it's 30 to 40.
Part of the reason for their distorted numbers could be where they're getting their people.
That's fair. That's fair, but I'm glad you read that because that kind of backs up what I was saying. I said 33, but you said 30 to 40, I think.
Yeah.
And so the particular judge that we brought up, Isla Dice, hers was like 92%.
Interesting.
Just letting everybody in.
Well, that's the perception, right? But like, if you really are critically analyzing that, like, there's a lot of fallacious leaps to conclusion. The basic fallacy is you're taking the mere fact that a person has an inordinately high approval rating on their docket in terms of all the cases added up, aggregate, and that somehow means that they're ruling in some kind of untoward way or in some way where they're, I don't know, they're trying to be an activist judge or they're not following the law properly. And that's a huge leap. Like there could be any number of reasons that explain why hers are disproportionately high. Among the reasons would be what Mother pointed out. It depends on like what kinds of cases she typically gets on her docket. But it also can be explained by like she could have just so happened to be in a jurisdiction that got a surge of cases from certain countries where there were actually legitimate fear of persecution that she could rule on and rule in their favor. That's another way to explain it. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but like the point is, it's a fallacy because all of these other things can equally explain the phenomenon.
And that could even be likely given where she is, right? I mean, Salvadorians, the country in some ways wouldn't be somebody who would send some, like the asylum considerations have shifted in the last couple of years, but there was lots of reasons for people to be very much in fear for their life when they were living in El Salvador in the years that she would have been ruling on, and we have a lot of Salvadorian immigrants in the Bay. Right. So like that might be an example that's concrete of exactly those things.
So it was like El Salvador was not conscionable to allow people to live in until they got hard on crime. Yes. Isn't that amazing? I just wish we could be as hard on crime as El Salvador is.
I love when you just say the fascist stuff out loud. It's great.
I was thinking the same thing, Your Honor.
I don't know that there's any place that's harder on crime than us. Don't we have, by several orders of magnitude, the biggest prison population in the world?
Yep.
Is that not true anymore? Am I making that up?
Nope.
Don't we have more prisoners than like every major country combined? Like what are you talking about? How are we not tough on crime, man?
There's a lot of cases where guys can make more money inside the prison than on the street.
What does that have to do with his question?
It's a business.
It has nothing to do with my question.
And how are we not tough? Because we have this compulsion to release violent, like pretrial offenders on bail, who then commit more violent offenses that they then have new court dates for.
We have nearly. That's true. We have nearly 2 million people in prisons and jails in this country. That's increased dramatically since the 70s.
We have a disproportionate number of people, of course, representing the black and brown community.
Whoa! You can't. Jason just went over how fallacious that argument is.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, I'm coming to the party late.
Yes, you did.
I didn't. No.
That same thing you said about the judges' cases is the same thing with the
really?
Just because it's racially disproportionate doesn't mean it's racist. That's exactly the argument.
That's not the argument I made at all. You're way off. What I was about to say was, we make up 5% of the world's population, but we hold 20% of the global prison population. We hold a fifth of the world's prison population.
Yeah, well, that's because the countries that are really tough on crime execute their prisoners.
We've increased our incarcerated population 500% since the 70s, bro. That's like 100% a decade. That's crazy. There's disproportionate impact. The system disproportionately affects Black and Latino communities, which is true. And then the mass incarceration comes at a significant cost, but financially and socially. That's true. Like, I don't know how we're not tough on crime. I mean, we did the whole tough on crime revolution, and that's one of the things that contributed to our almost exponential increase in our prison population.
You know what? I think.
Yeah, I actually want to get figures for this. How many people have we executed?
How many people have China executed? Like, I do wonder. It seems like a lot of what you would consider serious felonies here, such as just drug trafficking, for example, is a capital offense in a country like China.
Not just China, Singapore, Burma, Mali. They're about to execute an Australian lady for like having a bunch of coke in her luggage or something.
Let's see, we've only executed, this is actually lower than I thought. Unless, okay, maybe I said 5,000. I mean, it's like 1,500, but yeah, I mean,
that's all right.
I'm wondering about like the death. Maybe I should ask this differently.
So I think what Manville really meant by being tougher on crime is that we need to be tougher on crime for white and Caucasian people.
All right, how many people have received the death penalty? All right, that's more like 1,600. That's still lower than I thought. Oh, all right, well, those numbers are pretty low. We don't typically kill people, we warehouse people.
And now we warehouse
It's a lot
people.
harder for the private companies to make money off the. It's very hard to make money off of the executed people. It's much easier to make money off the incarcerated ones.
I'm cynical, but true.
I mean, $11 billion a year goods and services. So
Well, hey, who's going
generated
to
off of
sew?
the incarcerated population?
Who's going to sew the layers of Kevlar into our soldiers' helmets to go kill Afghans? Who's going to do that for $1.25 an hour?
All right, the countries with the highest number of executions are in 2024 were China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. Let me see what this figure says.
How many robberies? How many robberies does Saudi Arabia have?
Okay, holy shit, that's a lot. Okay, so but America was 5th place. This was in 2022. America was 5th place. Behind China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. But China was way more than us. It's incredible.
You should also look up how many countries deport their criminals and to what extent that they do it, because a lot of low tiers, instead of housing them, they'll just deport them or say, get out of our country.
Wow, China kills a lot of people. That's wild. Right?
Yeah, it's almost like they're bad guys.
In Saudi Arabia. And right behind us is Singapore, Iraq, and Kuwait.
Yeah, but what's the per capita execution rate of Singapore?
I assume it's 1,000 per capita. I'm trying to read to see how to read this.
Wasn't
this is just a total number in that year. So it was thousands in China, 576 in Iran, Saudi Arabia was 196, Egypt was 24, and the United States was. That was in 2022.
Did you say it was Russia on that list?
No. But this is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 countries deep.
Russia and China both lie about their data, so you could assume it's worse than
worldwide by 2024. Okay, hold on. Let me get a more recent one. Okay. So in 2024, we were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. And then Egypt ended up being behind us. So China was first. There was 1,000 in 2024 executions carried out. Iran was 972. Saudi Arabia was 345. Iraq, which is fourth, was 63. Yemen was 38. Somalia was 34. And the United States was 25. Egypt, after us, was 13. Singapore, 9. And Kuwait, 6. Russia wasn't on the list. I don't know if Russia reports, though. That might be why they're not on there. I don't know how they're getting these numbers. I don't know these countries.
Even if they did, they would lie.
Yeah, I mean, they might.
I think people just disappear in Russia.
But murder's not the same as an execution, right? So I don't know, bro. Like, they may not count because of that. Yeah.
But, I mean, the question is, in this big, wide open country of China with.
I'm sorry, let me cite my source into the chat. Put in the chat. This is the Statista graphic I was looking at. You guys want to review it for yourselves?
How many people, get shot and get their car taken from them in the middle of the city?
Does that mean anything? What are you talking about? Why are you going nebulously into other fucking topics?
Isn't that the topic was El Salvador's rapid crackdown on gang activity in their country has resulted in inverting the worst per capita homicide rate in the world into one of the best.
Okay. What does that have to do with anything?
It's we should be as aggressive as we were with the 5 families in New York to other criminal street gangs operating in the United States that are dropping bodies. We should go after them. We should make sure that they don't come out.
What we're talking about, bro, we're talking about the firing of judges and why that's problematic. I get it. You really don't like people you think are criminals and you want to treat them in untoward ways. Their civil liberties be damned. But bruh, that's not really on topic, is it?
No, it's not. Manville, for context, I'm pretty sure you've mentioned publicly that you work in law enforcement, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there we
That's
go.
so terrifying. It's so terrifying. Oh my God. So glad you live far, far away. I mean, I do understand how it connects with your logic, which is basically these courts are getting in the way of the ultimate goal, which isn't justice as, mainstream people would describe it. It's, doing what needs to be done and trusting our guts that, we know who the bad guys are and we don't need to really think too deeply about it. And all this court stuff was always just kind of bullshit to make us feel better about ourselves.
Yes, Jack Nicholson was right. Yes, he did. Yes.
What is the highest level of education that you had, Emma? Just curious.
Bachelor's.
Oh, I thought he was going to say Clubhouse.
What did you major in?
I have a fucking doctorate from Clubhouse, motherfucker.
What did you major in? I'm serious.
Yes.
I'm seriously, I don't really want to guess. I really want to know.
Oh, finance.
Like, how much careful consideration have you, and I'm seriously asking, I'm not trying to be a dick, how much consideration have you given, how much deep thought, I guess, have you engaged in when it comes to the need for basic human rights, like a criminal justice context?
Like, we've had, discussions before about whether people actually have rights or whether they're just a construct and all that, super 30,000-foot view stuff. But as it relates to how we operate this system, like, we have a massive disconnect between the actual rights that the Supreme Court has bothered to enumerate in case law for people and people's actual perception of what those rights are. But we also have a system where your ability to fund legal challenges and protect your rights against the government is extremely dependent on the outcome you're going to receive. So I think the American people have the rights that they can afford to defend in court in this system, and not much more than that.
Yeah, you've like given indication that you kind of subscribe to force doctrine in some way. Is that fair?
Yeah.
There's a way that you could kind of, I guess, accede to force doctrine, but still at the same time consistent with that maintain that those rights, whatever the manifestations are purposeful or are useful in a civil society. Do you think something like that about rights?
Yeah, but there are trade-offs to them, right? Like, we went
Okay,
crazy.
Do you think that they're unalienable?
We went crazy post 9/11, right? Eviscerating the Fourth Amendment.
Do you think that they're inalienable?
I mean, that depends on whether the critical mass of people believe that.
That's not. Do you know what inalienable means?
Yeah. Something you can't. Something inherent that you can't strip away from somebody.
Okay. Do you believe that they're inalienable? Like, if it depends, then that's just a weird way of saying no. If it's inalienable, it can't depend in the way that you're describing.
Yeah, because like in theory, we have written that down, but in practice, do we reasonable rights in every individual circumstance in America?
But that's not what
or anywhere.
It doesn't mean always respected either, man. Yeah, but that's not what inalienable means. It doesn't mean always respected, always recognized, or never violated. Like, even if your rights are being violated, you still have them.
And also, I think the tension with this topic is in deciding how far are we going to extend these systems to people who are guests or uninvited guests in the country versus people who are naturalized citizens.
And all of the force doctrine therein is just to maximize the likelihood that people will respect each other's rights, but that they have them, right? Like, that's not something that depends on force.
Well, your ability to enforce them does.
Yeah, I agree. But the fact that you have them, right, is not dependent on any of that shit.
But of course it is, because you can claim any right you want, but like your ability to get other people convinced to respect it is what's going to determine how far you can go.
It's going to determine whether or not your right is respected in practice. But rights are moral concepts.
But that's
rights are moral concepts.
The practice of rights is the only thing that's there. The moral concept of rights is not.
But rights are moral concepts. That's the point. They create obligations on other people that then we have a layer of law on top of and other force activating mechanisms to get people to comply who otherwise aren't inclined to do so. That's fair, but like you can have your force doctrine at the level of law, but not at the level of morality. Anyway, food for thought. Like I want to be devilish, but I just thought it was something that you might want to think about. If you're gonna be enforced to the law of people, bro, and your conception of rights is that they're just kind of like, whatever. That's so problematic.
If you
Don't worry,
go into
he's in law enforcement.
Whatever, and you fuck up a bunch of established case law and the ways and the procedures and the things you were supposed to do in order to obtain the evidence and ask questions and complete your investigation,
Let me say that.
it's not going to go very far.
Do you think it's morally acceptable for rabble rousers to attack ICE agents?
Morally acceptable?
Yes. What about doxing them? Do you think it's morally acceptable for rabble rousers to dox ICE agents? Expose their families to all kinds of fucking dangerous shit.
Like I don't really run around making moral judgments on people,
You don't?
It's more like
okay. So you have nothing to say about whether that should or should not happen?
I mean, it's very clearly a violation of law.
I'm not asking about the law. I'm asking about morality.
No, one man's freedom fighter.
I mean,
it's entirely perspective dependent.
Okay.
If I was an ICE officer,
if somebody were to treat you that way, you'd be cool with it because
if I was an ICE officer,
without any moral claims.
If I was an ICE officer enforcing Title VIII and somebody tried to dox me, and then somebody tried to come to my house and protest or scare my family as a result of that, right?
Yeah.
Like I personally have
a shit about what you
big fucking problem.
Is it wrong though? Is it wrong? Morally wrong?
To the agent, yeah.
What do you mean to? Yeah, you said fourth to the eight, like as if. Okay, so it's like subjectively morally wrong.
Yeah, is it morally wrong to hide people and shelter people from ICE?
I don't know. I'm ambivalent about that. It depends on the circumstances. I do think it would be morally wrong to like attack ICE agents. I think that's obviously morally wrong.
I mean, but if these ICE agents are, they're completely violating all of these inalienable civil liberties of all these people. If you're making that argument, then shouldn't they rise up and resist the tyrannical oppressor?
Yeah, I do think that you should resist acts of tyranny, but I was just talking about like seeing an ICE agent getting really pissed off about him and what he represents and shooting at him and throwing rocks and shit like rabble rousers have done on TV. Like that shit's clearly not acceptable. You have to have some assurance that the ICE agent in question is actually guilty of the thing that you presumed about them. You can't just make a presumption and then do anything to them. Like, that's clearly not moral. But then again, I'm nuanced. Maybe that's too much nuance for other people. The only reason why I seized up the ICE thing is because I thought you'd be able to relate to it as a law enforcement agent a little easier.
Yeah, it's more.
But it's easy to be self-interested. You're like, yeah, everything everybody does against me, I'm against, and everything they do for me is great. They should do more of it.
I know that's what I was. That's why I did it the way I did it. But
That's the fascist logic.
I was then gonna flip it and go, well, in the same way, and it'd be wrong for people to do that to you. It goes the other direction. So that's what moral.
We have things called FISA courts, and we have these detention centers that are not on U.S. soil.
Right, but that all implicates law and force in the way that you're thinking about force doctrine, but that doesn't implicate moral principles and moral obligations, which are quite separate things. They're related, they interact, but they're not the same.
Well, Jason, like, I think it'd be great if everybody would just do good thing and not do bad thing.
I mean, yeah.
Oh shit, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, I get that we live in a world where that is quite regularly not the case. I'm not trying to make it seem like we live in a fairy tale land. I'm just trying to get you to think a little bit about the moral implications of your positions, dude. Like you have obligations to other people along the lines I was trying to describe, particularly in your official capacity as a law enforcement agent. And among those would be to respect their rights. But I never got there because
well, I would argue that
past step one.
That you have the duties to discharge the office, the responsibilities of the office to which you've been appointed, right? And you do them with the Constitution and the state constitution and the body of laws that stem from those documents. But you also do that with case law. And like the people right now are very much opposed to the application of case law. Like at every turn where, where case law is applied.
A lot of people are fine with the application of just laws, but they want to do they would prefer that it be done in a manner that is compassionate and is consistent with maximal respect for people's basic civil liberties, no matter what crimes they are accused of or have been convicted of. That's what they want.
The tactics being employed, right? They're overwhelming a small number of agents with a lot of people and a lot of unknowns to deal with, while they're also trying to, or subdue and then arrest somebody who's resisting and then take them against their will to wherever they're going to take them to get detained.
That's true.
Trying to do this without.
They're doing that, but they're also like they're maximally disrupting communities. They're conducting their raids in such a way that are drumming up fear and reducing the extent to which the people that they're targeting and or people who are related to them, like their husbands and their siblings, and etc., are able to participate in civil life, right? And so that's the fear that they're drumming up in the way that they're conducting their raids. But the most egregious thing is the blatant violations of people's basic civil liberties. Taking people who have the legal right to be here into custody without question or any real opportunity to avoid being detained, and in some extreme cases for extended periods of time, like months, because of legal gray areas and loopholes that were not thought of when the policies were being designed or deployed. They're also taking in people who are not like egregious criminal offenders. Like these are people who maybe overstayed visas or crossed the border illegally, but then like their license expired or something that implicates the law, but not like it.
They still broke the law to begin.
Yeah, they did. I acknowledge that, but there's a difference in all laws aren't the same. So
it doesn't matter if somebody systematically chooses not to follow the laws of a host nation, crosses the border, and they get caught, they should be able to get sent out. They obviously already don't respect the laws of that nation by crossing illegally to begin with. They should be escorted out of the country.
Stop yelling for a second and listen. Like that's fine. I actually acknowledge the legalities. I'm not even arguing against them. I'm trying to describe the manner in which the deportation efforts are being taken place, how they are sometimes violative of people's civil liberties, even people who've broken the law. And those they ought not have their civil liberties violated, even if they cross an imaginary line in the dirt.
So,
correct. Real quick then, though, one second, please. So, to your point, Muse, and I guess Shepwreck, so yeah, there's folks that are not. There are folks that are here legally. There's a specific example of an Irishman who was here legally. He was taken because he had overstayed his visa by not 3 months, by 3 days. Why did he do that? Because, excuse me, he was in need of an emergency medical attention. He provided medical documentation. They didn't matter to the ICE agents. They detained him unnecessarily for 100 days.
Yeah, that's draconian. That's fucked. And that's the kind of shit that I would object to. And
so you're arguing that
really, there's no real excuse for that or justification for that. Right?
So you're arguing that when the scale required.
No, I'm gonna stop it right there. No, I'm not arguing anything about that. I'm simply saying the manner in which the policies are being deployed, carried out, are in many cases not conducive to what the law actually allows. And that's a problem if your whole thing is law and order. And the people who are careful are objecting essentially to that, because that's draconian and in many instances illegal. In a lot of instances, it's not that it's illegal, it's that it's callous. It lacks any consideration about the situations that human beings are in. A lot of them don't have any demonstrable ill will towards the country or anything like that. There's so many different anecdotal cases I can give you. There are a lot of people who these actions, barring anything illegal, are totally appropriate because they're criminals. And they've done really fucked up shit in a lot of different places, not only just here in the United States in a lot of cases, but also in their own countries and other countries along the way. And so, like, a lot of the draconian stuff you're advocating for are way more appropriate as applied to them. But, like, it's almost as if y'all won't allow for any nuances. Like, every single person who's being targeted is not like a fucking 5-time convicted felon from El Salvador or fucking MS-13 member, bro. Like, a lot of these are like,
right,
just sweet old ladies and shit. Like, like
the position of ICE is that anybody here in the country that does not have a legal status is getting sent home. That's the position of ICE at the moment.
Right.
No, that's not actually the position of ICE. Anyone who they suspect can get it, and they're not going to go through the legal process because that shit's long and annoying.
That's actually...
That is what they are executing in practice. It's what the president has said out loud.
But that's not true. That's not true.
It is true.
No, it isn't.
I can give you a million examples of where that's what they're doing.
You can, but the majority of cases aren't like that, right? So like you gotta have some conception of like what percentage of cases you're talking about.
Yeah, but that's such a
blatant policy of ICE to do.
That's
not the policy of ICE to do what you're describing. Their official policy is to do something very specific that they're often not executing, and that's when they get into trouble, and that's when I'm in 100% agreement with you. They shouldn't be doing those things.
The argument that I would make.
Let me respond to that. The problem with that is that it's like a very sweet way of talking about what is actually a wild and blatant illegality. Like the way our laws are supposed to work under any prior definition is that they are supposed to be followed. People have rights that are to be respected. And an organization that is acting regularly in violation of them and is not taking the proper actions to ensure that they're following the law is in fact in breach of that law. Like when we see things like this in the past, like I don't know, let's say the cops in Ferguson giving out tickets just because they could, and they were trying to like make money in quotas and buy like military toys and shit like that. Yeah. The federal government put them under a consent decree. And because they weren't following the law, this is equivalent to that. This is the ICE version of Ferguson or the LAPD or, take your state police departments.
That's in dispute, though.
I mean, it's been ruled by judges.
Yeah, but particular instances. So, like, what?
Well, no. I mean, in broad.
No.
In broad practice, there's been judges who've ruled this.
What do you
There's been a couple of cases so far where, so for example, when they were talking about the National Guard stuff in LA, which is now mooted because they're gone, there was a judge who ruled that the practices that ICE was deploying within LA County or whatever the jurisdiction was were actually broadly violative of people's civil rights and whatever other laws that they were considering.
Yes. Okay. So that's okay. So now I have a better understanding of what you mean. Fine. That's true. in that instance. But like the point I'm trying to make for you is it matters the degree to which the relevant law enforcement agency is doing the violative stuff, right? If you take the whole of all of their activities, and 99% of them are by the book and 1% is not, I wouldn't say that entire law enforcement agency is violative of the law. That's overwrought. If it's more like 70%, 30, then the problem is a lot bigger because that 30% is a big chunk of their activity, and 30% violative of people's basic civil liberties is worse than one. If it's 10% they're doing things by the book, 90% they're doing things corrupt, that's clearly a huge problem, right? So like that discrepancy matters, right?
Yeah, but
what is in dispute is precisely that.
Except the problem with what you're saying is that there's a backsliding in terms of our standards that's embedded in what it is that you're saying. So in the past,
I'm not.
For example,
just to be clear, I'm not asserting there's a backsliding.
No. I'm saying there is a backsliding, like standard in how you're describing it, because it has been the standard, broadly speaking, in the U.S. that if you are in violation of a very small handful of people's rights as a systematic or a systemic matter, that is a very, very serious problem. That has been the standard, which is why most people like I hate, like the Vallejo PD has done terrible things. I would acknowledge that it was one police gang of like 14 officers that was responsible for the vast majority of it, and there's probably several hundred police officers who are part of that. It is a massive scandal in the Bay Area what they've done, like bending back points on their badges for each person they shot on the job. Like that scandal is a massive scandal, even though very few people did it, right? So it doesn't. So part of what I'm saying is that acting in a systemic way that is violative of a lot of people's rights is already a large departure.
That it is considered a major scandal doesn't really help, right? Like I'm trying to get at the facts of the matter, right? Like you're talking about ICE right now as if the split is definitively 10% by the book, 90% corruption. And what I'm saying is that is actually not known, and that matters because your response to it should be commensurate with like the extent to which the fuck shit's actually being done. Yeah, I'm not talking about public opinion. I'm talking about facts, and like that's all I was trying to illustrate.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to say is
I think that the threat. I think that the threat that it could become something like 70-30 or something that I think would be bad is enough justification to remain vigilant about it and to point it out anywhere it's like provable. Like, hey, they just violated somebody's civil liberties. That's not okay. But like, what I wouldn't justify is an overreaction where now you're tacitly justifying motherfuckers shooting at ICE just because they're the Gestapo. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say, though, is if you had, let's say there's 1,000 cops. Let's say there's 1,000 cops. Tomato. Yeah, I'm gonna leave in not too long, and I'm gonna be quiet after this. So how about that? And also, you're supposed to be named after comic book characters, not fruit. So I'd appreciate you helping us identify you ahead of time. Thank you very much. So if there's 1,000 cops in San Francisco and 100 of them are out here doing wilding out, doing whatever they want, like detaining people, not following the law, that would be a phenomenally large number. If 10% of the stops were like that. In fact, in a place that did something just like that, New York City, it was a massive scandal, stop and frisk, and it impacted a very small percentage of the overall population of New York. I mean, it was mostly, black and brown men and boys between the ages of like 15 and 25 or something like that. And it barely impacted anybody. Like, it was a very small number, and it rightfully was a scandal. And that's part of what I'm saying is that when you say 90-10, my standard, which has been the broad standard, is that is bananas. That's like an unbelievable abuse of power if 10% of ICE agents or 10% of ICE encounters are being done, in an extra legal or even illegal way. That would be
Are you
insane.
under the impression that I think that it would be acceptable if it was 90-10? Because that wasn't my point.
Well, you were saying that the response of like talking about them as a Gestapo or being outraged by it should be commensurate with the amount, and you were suggesting that 70-30 would be where you would go there, and 90-10 was a place where you wouldn't. And for me, that 10 is fucking crazy.
You just misunderstood me. The point in bringing up the differences matter because there's a difference in terms of like how bad the problem is, right? So I think just as a basic step, I think you would agree with me that if 30% of the police force were fucking people over, wouldn't that be worse than 10% of the police force?
Yeah, sure. And if they were killing people instead of detaining them extra illegally for weeks, that would also be worse.
Right. But okay. Right. But the degree to which the infractions are taking place matters, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. My whole point is a backsliding spectrum argument.
No, it's not though, because the only point I'm trying to do is like get you to see the thing you just admitted, which was if it's a higher percentage of law enforcement engaging in the fuck shit, it's worse, right?
Yeah,
and so our response to that shit, in some sense, track that reality. That's what I'm saying. I never really gave you a threshold at which I thought it would be acceptable because that wasn't really germane to the point I was making.
Okay, do you think that there's any threshold at which it is acceptable?
Yeah, because it would have to deal with the fact that all law enforcement is imperfect, and so you're never going to get a perfect law enforcement. So
okay, so if an officer
something like 99.9% or something like that, because we're never going to get it to 100 like we would want in an ideal sense. But the reason why is because it would be an acknowledgement of you're going to have imperfect law enforcement. That's
okay. So as a manager, you would accept 99%, but for that 1%, if you were, say, the manager of this, that 1% that is in violation, you would take action to try to get them back. How they should be, right? So it's not actually acceptable.
Well, it is acceptable in the sense that you'll never get 100-0.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you think the individual officer that's in violation of, is violating people's rights or in violation of the law needs to be addressed. It is unacceptable for them. Okay.
Because it's always wrong.
Yeah. No, I understand. You're saying like managerially, like if you heard that ICE was doing it 99% by the book, you would feel like, okay, that's about as good as we could hope for, and the 1% needs to be dealt with, and hopefully they can make them better.
I'm not committing to a threshold. I'm saying the reasoning should be, let's minimize the fuck shit as much as actually possible, right? And then deal with the reality that you're not going to have perfect police all the time.
Yeah, okay. But you are saying that there's something that should be done about it because it's wrong.
Yes.
So aspiration should always be, the goal, the objective should be to minimize it. Yes. And part of what I am saying is that the president disagrees with you in his own words. Right, he said things like, I don't. Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, and so to me, the same reason you do, or at least so far.
Yeah,
because that's not in alignment with the principle I just articulated.
Yeah, and which is where I was about to go, which is to say that for me, based on my study of rising authoritarianism around the world, which I have studied in depth across many countries, several dozen, that the more sort of leash you give an authoritarian before there's pushback, the harder it is to push back, and they do not stop. You give an inch, they take a mile. And that is in fact what we're seeing right now. And that's part of why the reaction, I think, should be bigger in response, is because it will be much harder to roll back the changes that are being made if people really get on board in a year than right now. I may be wrong, I may be right, but that's certainly the historical record.
Bigger I can deal with, but measured and sensible. Not bigger in terms of performative outrage that doesn't do shit, but create ironically justifications for these asshats to continue their activity. Like, that's not a good approach.
I mean, the Estonians overthrew the Soviets by singing their national songs in their main square. Like, performance matters.
Okay.
Just look it up. The singing revolution is fascinating.
Yeah, okay. So then I guess keep this weird-ass approach where you call ICE Gestapo and throw rocks at their cars and shoot at them. And
I mean, I'm not advocating for rocks and guns.
And in some case, actually murder them and see how that goes. Like, I'm saying that's dumb.
Okay, well, I agree with you. I mean, I believe in nonviolent resistance, so I don't think throwing rocks and shooting at cops are
part of the undermining performative outrage is the unhinged, I'm willing to resort to violence because big bad. That's what I'm criticizing. That's not a measured approach to any of that shit, and it undermines the moral force of the objection, and it creates scapegoats for your political opposition, because then they use that against you and go, see how crazy they are? We need more troops. And that shit is actually effective, and it undermines your points.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, like, effective resistance, whether it's performative or not, and a lot of times, like crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge was performative. It was very powerful.
It's performative in principle.
Yeah. Okay. So
manifestations of it that are hollow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then we basically agree. And what I'm saying is that there needs to be more moral clarity, and that basically espouses, some principles which probably should be rooted in classical liberalism, and things like human rights and law and so on and so forth. That basically people who believe in such things need to take a firm stand and force this administration to expose its opposition to those classically liberal values, which are that have been broadly believed in America and very much need new life breathed into them by a morally clear, righteous movement. Because the alternative is for the Manvilles to take over.
or the people that you would be that your palate would find more appropriate taking over, like they were trying to do.
My palate, my tasting these people. This is very weird.
That was metaphorical. All right, it's made it even worse. Did you speak at it yet? You've been wanting to speak for me.
Yeah, I'm asking the room, when will the Supreme Court rule on this? Because I think it's best for America as a whole, as a country, if the Supreme Court rules quickly.
Wait, rules on what? I'm sorry.
I think the proposition on the table is that these judges, because they're leftist, they are letting in asylum seekers they know are fraudulent. And I'd like to have the Supreme Court rule on that, because it's better for America if this is decided quickly rather than...
Do you mean the 17 specific judges that made the news?
Yeah, I'm asking about the 17, yes.
I don't know that there are any lawsuits pending about this yet. There may be, and once that happens, then perhaps there's a pathway up to the Supreme Court. I'm not sure, though, how likely that is. So I don't know that... What I was going to say is I don't know how probable, let's say, that's going to be, because of things that I just articulated. I don't know. So.
Well, I think that the larger issue for the future of America is a lot of the reason, if you go to law schools and you talk to the law students majoring in immigration law, they're all good people, but they're very ideologically motivated. That is, the overwhelming majority of people that major in immigration law in law school, they have an ideological bent towards letting a lot more migrants come here. So it's not the pool that they're using to select judges. It's not a neutral and biased pool. It's a very, very skewed pool. So the question I have is, does the president have the right to wholesale replace the immigration judiciary in order to have it be more balanced? And I'd like to see what the Supreme Court says, because it has precedence for a lot of types of Judge Black. And I say that...
To my knowledge, probably the most likely vector that something like that would be adjudicated would be something that presents before the court the question of unitary executive theory, because that's usually the basis under which people assume that the whatever the executive, the president happens to be, they somehow have the power to just like determine who's the judges in the immigration court, because that's a part of the executive branch. And the idea is that the president gets to fire anybody in the executive branch for any reason. There's a whole bunch of case law and court precedent that really directly contradicts that and says that's not a thing. And so that would have to be in some sense a question before the court, the Supreme Court, and then they'd have to rule on that. I don't think that it's a good idea at all. I think that the idea that the president can quite literally fire any member of the executive branch willy-nilly is a terrible idea. And one of the main examples of that are immigration judges, because they have a role, although they're a part of the executive branch, they have a role that is summarily undermined by that kind of thing. They need to have a certain kind of independence so that they can make their rulings and judgments free and clear of political intimidation, motivation, agendas, etc. Because the extent to which those things are compromising their judgments are literally undermining to their rulings in that context.
Well, that's certainly
The irony is that they need a certain kind of, I wouldn't call it immunity, but freedom or independence to do their job, which is akin to the rationale behind giving the President of the United States broad immunity, because you want the executive to be able to make a whole bunch of decisions in the best interest of the country that are being clear of outside influences, like how they're going to come after me with lawsuits after I'm out of office.
So you're certainly
correct. The president understood that. But
you're certainly correct, but allow a small counterpoint, right? Imagine if you're correct, but all these immigration judges are socializing with your honor. They're going to cocktail parties with leftists who say, obviously, the ethical thing to do is to let an unlimited number of migrants. So let's assume that
I just want to note that we're only drinking imported wines. None of them are American.
Okay, why are you interrupting me?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just want to add something.
What I'm saying is this, the social circle, human beings are humans, right? The social circle you travel in impacts your moral compass. And in certain social circles, letting in a lot of fake asylum seekers, it's part and parcel of your community group. So what I'm saying is a case could be made that these judges, they're violating the law, not because of political pressure, but because of pressure from people like your honor.
What about Supreme Court justices who associate with January 6ers?
I'm against that as well.
Concerned with that?
Yeah, I think that's
okay. Because, like, to be honest with you, like, I don't like this road. It's something that's replicated on both sides, but I hate it because it insists that you are who you hang around, and that's bullshit by and large. People can influence you socially, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily the case. You have to demonstrate that in the individual cases where you think that somebody's social arrangements or attachments or whatever are compromising their ability to be a judge. You have to prove that shit. I'm not even sure that being married to somebody who has an unpopular view is enough. Like people have suggested with some of our Supreme Court justices. Like, just because my wife thinks something doesn't mean I think it, number one. And number two, it doesn't mean that it compromises my ability to render a sound judgment in accordance with the law. So that shit's more complicated than that. And for that reason, I don't like this guilty by association logic. I don't think it universally applies. I think in many cases, maybe even most cases, people have the ability to think on their own in those contexts and not think in accordance with their social ties. That said, I'm not naive. I do acknowledge there probably are judges, and throughout history probably have been a lot of judges who've been compromised by their social ties. I'm thinking about judges who associated with Klan members back in the day. Judges who interacted with white supremacists, like avowed racists, and some of that shit rubbed off on them and compromised their judgments in various different ways. I do think that has happened historically, and I do think that it probably happens to a certain degree today. But like, my main point is that you can't presume that. You gotta prove that. And it's hard to prove because you can't read people's minds.
And if they're drinking fine tequilas with me, also all imported, we can definitely impugn their character because clearly I'm influencing their decisions based on my choice of reposados.
Like to me, the better vector would be kind of ideology, and like you can tell what people's ideologies are a lot of times, and a lot of times they'll tell you. You just converse with them or whatever. But even that is not enough. Like, quiet as it's kept, people with liberal values or progressive values have the ability to be good judges. That's a fact. I will vouch for that. And I have my bone to pick with some liberals and progressives. But they're not idiots. Like, they're capable of thinking deeply about things. And I think that the same or something analogous is true of conservative judges. Like, they have their biases politically and ideologically, but they have the ability, it is possible to rule with sound logic and reasoning. And to some extent, it may reflect their biases or whatever, but not so much where it's like way off base. So I don't know, man, this idea that certain ideologies are capable of being, being good judges, or certain people with certain ideologies are capable of being good judges and others aren't, I don't buy that. I actually think that is the product of bias itself. And there's been amazing judges that had liberal biases throughout history. And I think there've been great judges that had conservative biases throughout history. So I don't know, man. I don't buy that shit. And I don't know what percentage of immigration judges are quote unquote liberal. Presumably there are a lot of conservative immigration judges.
Well, if I have a link that shows, I will. I have some friends who are involved in an organization called the Innocence Project, and I can tell you that the political biases of the people involved in the Innocence Project are greater than any you'll ever.
What percentage of judges do they represent?
The Innocence Project? 0. They're not judges. The Innocence Project is basically particularly focused on people who are on death row that may be innocent, and they give pro bono legal services to try to free them. And they have, in many cases. There's at least dozens, if not more, instances of them proving the innocence of people who were slated for execution.
Give me something that can help me get a reasonable sense of what percentage of current immigration judges have a liberal bias. I mean, I can just literally just put that in Google. See what happens.
Why do immigration judges, why do you have to judge them based on liberal or illiberal biases?
I don't know. That's so weird. I don't know. He's doing that. I don't know why he's doing that.
I mean, there's already the Immigration and Nationalization Act, right? So what does that even mean? Anyway.
I mean, this is part of what I was saying before about like Odie, you, Jason, for sure, definitely Ali, I'd say Kirko and Cuzzo, all fall into sort of the traditional mainstream of American politics. Fundamentally believe in the rule of law. Maybe we disagree with certain laws, but we understand that they should be followed as part of the social contract. Basically believe in the political, tradition that goes back to, the thinkers like Locke, and, and moves forward to people like Rawls. And we fundamentally fall into that. And I think that one of the tragedies of this moment is that there are too many of the us's who don't understand that the Manvilles are something very, very different. And they are not in that mainstream tradition. They do not respect the rule of law. They're not interested in it. The idea of sort of pluralism or some sort of rights of man kind of conception is not something that they have. And I just think we need to come to terms with that and to understand what happens, what's done by the Trump administration through that lens, because they are not part of that mainstream. And they keep telling us, and I feel like people just refuse to hear it.
That's interesting.
Well, what's so unsaid, Aaron?
I don't think it's unsaid. I think you motherfuckers have kept saying exactly what you believe. You did it earlier, right? Like, it was almost hard for you to answer Jason's question before because it's so in you, right? Like, it's just the water you swim in. And in particular because of, like, the epistemological crisis we're in, right? Like, the information bubbles and all that shit. It's very easy for someone to be so deep in their own bubble that it becomes like just, accepted orthodoxy that liberalism is a mental disorder, for example. or that Democrats are pedophiles, and that, and basically in all kinds of ways dehumanized, and therefore are just getting what they deserve when Trump finally does what needs to be done. Like that, I think it makes sense. This moment makes sense when you just look at it through that lens and you understand that they don't really give a fuck about Alligator Alcatraz because it's not about rule of law, it's about punishing the bad people.
It's amazing the awareness you can have of one side of the coin, right? But not noting the temperature of the water, right, that we were steeped in from. I mean, you could say there were grumblings of it in the 2000s, but really it was 2012 when this stuff really kicked off. And you had a rampant authoritarian morality police running all over the country that had infected or infiltrated every government agency and every major company and employer, that ran around finding people who violated the orthodoxy and were to be punished, through shunning or firing them or ejecting them from society. Right, and the people that, ironically, the people that were shunned and attacked for stuff like this were people like fucking Brett Weinstein and shit, who are like as far from a fascist as you're gonna find.
I mean, the problem with your theory of the case, Manville, is that.
Let me respond. Manville, the thing you're missing is that liberal overreach served America in a great way. So if you go to San Francisco today, specifically because of your honor's crimes, the voters of San Francisco turned against your honor, and there's a new mayor that has reduced crime and reduced homelessness. So what I'm saying, Manville, is you see the leftist community overreaching, but what you don't see is it's good for America when they overreach, because your honor discredits himself and his ideology, and all of America benefits. And I'll go so far as to say, and then I'll shut up. When your honor succeeds in getting Mondami as mayor in New York, and there's pogroms in New York, when we see pogroms and Kristallnachts in New York, it'll be good for America, because it'll show the stupidity of your honor.
But it doesn't make any sense. You gotta understand, Timothy, you have to understand that he believes that I control the world, which I find very flattering. It's not true, but I find it very flattering.
Well, he's trying to win with him because you're aligned with him politically or ideologically. But
I'm not really aligned with Mondani, but that's
okay. He's
sort of besides the point.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, I can't stand DSA for what it's worth, but that's not really important. I want to actually respond to Manville. So the problem with what you're saying, Manville, is that you are acting like this is something new, but it's a historical phenomenon that has been repeating over and over and over again. I mean, the Reagan Revolution was a similar response, right? There was a part of the country that looked at, free love and civil rights, and they're like, we are so tired of pretending this bullshit and having our, busing, and we have to have our kids go to school with those kids. And, there's a reason why the welfare queen tropes worked. And, what did Reagan say? He said something about make America great again. And then there was, another very similar movement that used the same slogan, about another 50 years earlier, who did the same kind of stuff. And it's been a repetitive, this has been a cycle within American history where there is a faction of people who know and understand in their conception that this country was built for them. And any time that they have to share it more, that something is being taken from them. And then they get together and they fight back. And this faction has existed under a bunch of names, whether it's the Fire Eaters or the Know Nothings, that goes way, way, way back into the earliest parts of our country's inception. We've never dealt with it. And so this is what happens, right? You have this pendulum swing back and forth. So I'm not surprised by it at all, because I actually do, have studied history and care about this shit. So absolutely. I don't think 2012 is the wrong date. I think it's really when Obama won, and typified by the Tea Party, which has, exploded into other stuff. But this is a really long project. It's weird for you to act like it's new, and weird to, just wrong to think that it's new to me.
What seems odd about this one is the inversion of the power pyramid and worshiping basic failures and incompetence, but also taking a McCarthyist attitude and behavior, but applying it to maximally hyper liberal social policies. That's very weird. It hasn't. I don't think it's historically been that that framing of a backlash.
It kind of has been. I mean, the woke shit before was things like the Civil Rights Act, which, wait, what is the right fringe of the MAGA movement into right now? It's rolling back the, oh, that's right, the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Like these things are cyclical. Like, you see the same pattern over and over again. Now, they may use a different word than woke, or they might talk about it in different ways, but, like, if you listen to the Nixon tapes, he just outwardly says, "Yeah, we're doing this war on crime," but we know what's really about. What it's really about. And if you listen to, or read up on Lee Atwater, he made it real plain. Like, it wasn't hard to read between the lines. And it's the same shit of Brad Parscale and Stephen Bannon. Like, they are essentially just a modern version of their predecessors. So I don't understand how that's difficult for you to see.
Manville, if you think about it, the policy of letting violent criminals go free is a big part of the reason why Black and Hispanic men voted for Trump, and to a greater extent in the most recent election. So Manville, just think for 1 second, right? If you compare the 2016 election to 2024, Black men and Hispanic men turned against your honor and denounced him specifically because of the policy of letting violent criminals go free. So when your honor advocates for abolishing the police and emptying the prisons, you should thank him, because it is your honor's anti-carceral
Just for the record, I don't actually believe either of those two things. Just for the record.
Yeah, close enough for us.
All right. I appreciate the honesty.
See, what you don't understand is your honor is your biggest friend in the room. Your honor is accidentally helping you win elections, Manville. And if your honor retired, you would lose election.
But, so Tomato, which I'm sure I know you under a different name, I think you fundamentally misunderstand me. I have something wrong with me, which is that for some fucking reason, no matter what it is, I am more comfortable being against the current thing. And when Trump takes power and starts doing a bunch of stuff, and everybody wants to get behind that cult of personality, it seems weird to go along with that. I don't like moving with crowds. Now, like, personal tastes, like, I prefer orderly, clean streets and golden retrievers and white picket fences to, like, heroin needles and pink fucking hair and women dressed as dudes fucking flipping around in tents they stole from their grandparents' garage. Like, I have a preference, but ultimately, I'm more comfortable being contrarian. And I've just noticed that and come to terms with that.
Yeah, and you should thank your honor, because you should visit San Francisco and see how clean it is today as a result of the new mayor. That's all I'm saying, Manville. Don't be a doomer. Don't be a doomer. Things are amazing in America.
I'm fine in America, but I think, well, with the shifting of the groups, actually, I think Peter Zahan had a great breakdown of like shifting electoral groups and how Bush and Trump differed, how Obama differed from the Democratic candidates. I think a shift did occur in 24 of the electorate, but we shouldn't be counting on it to set a new paradigm. I think it's more of a one-off, and the usual groups are still dominant in who's going to make up the popular vote in each state. That shift occurred due to, this fucking annoying ass COVID situation and the lack of a like out and out recession like we were due for. So that did change some things, but like the immigrant issue, I think the Black Americans are, fundamentally against it because they don't want to see a group be brought in here and then given things that help to be better than them that supersede them.
Hold on, Manville. I'm going to respond to you respectfully. I'm not comfortable saying
There's a subset of my community that feels. There's a subset of my community that feels that way. That I acknowledge. I don't even know if it's overall the majority. I actually have doubts that that's the case. But there have been, sadly, there seems to have been an increase recently in the Black community around kind of being in alignment with the kind of closed border type policies or anti-immigration policies. Some of that is driven by the ADOS movement, which puts a huge importance on lineage for the purposes of reparations. And sometimes it manifests itself as just pure xenophobia. But it also is a continuation of a politic in the Black community that goes back a few decades, even of the Obama administration, where there was genuine worry that the suppression of wages effect that a lot of undocumented immigrants bring in job sectors that directly compete, in job sectors wherein Black men in particular are directly competing. And it was like a civil rights issue in that context. And so there's a continuation of that concern in my community as well. But a lot of Black people who are liberal are open to immigrants. They live in communities with immigrants, places like LA and stuff like that. And a lot of times, a bunch of cyclical forces like gentrification and ghettoization force Black and brown people force the two communities to interact with each other and live in the same areas. Sometimes it manifests itself in like rival gang violence historically, but other times there's a kind of a shared understanding because we come from the same neighborhoods. And we interact with each other and we're friends and we marry each other and all that shit. So like, it's complicated. I don't know what the demographic data is though. I don't know what percentage of the Black community is like in alignment with kind of the right-leaning anti-immigrant kind of thing these days. But my guess would be that the majority of the Black community is not in alignment with the Trump administration. But I could be wrong. That's actually something I'm curious about.
Well, I have some data, Black, and I'll be very brief here. It really breaks down among education. So if you look at Black people who have a PhD or a master's, they are usually in line with the woke leftist narrative of letting in immigrants. But if you look at Black people who have skipped going to college, they're much more aligned with Trump and being against. And it shouldn't surprise you, right? In the white community, super highly educated, snobby, elite whites like Your Honor are in favor of mass immigration, and like the stupid poor whites are against it. So in the same way the white community is divided on the basis of education, the Black community is also to some extent respect.
I wish I lived in a world as simple as yours. It would be so easy to understand everything.
Try it, it's one.
Are you calling yourself a stupid? Is that
Aaron? There's another solution. If you don't want to oversimplify things, you can just start giving less of a fuck about other people.
I've been aware of that.
Hold on.
That's not
from the Chicago Council of Global Affairs. It says a majority of Black Americans favor keeping legal immigration levels at their present rate. Specifically, a poll from the Chicago Council of Global Affairs found that 52% of Black Americans supported maintaining current levels. Further, a separate poll indicated that 56% of African Americans believe immigration levels should remain the same. While support for maintaining current levels is strong, there's also some support for increasing or decreasing immigration. Approximately 25% of Black Americans favor increasing legal immigration, while 25% favor decreasing it. It's worth noting that attitudes towards immigration can vary within the Black community. For example, a poll in the Raleigh-Durham area found a higher percentage of Black residents favoring restrictions on both legal and illegal immigration. Additionally, attitudes can be influenced by factors like education, income, personal experience with immigrants. So yeah, this shit's complicated. But that's a nice little sense of it. It seems like there's a slight majority that favor increasing levels of legal immigration.
What's the date on that?
The date?
Yeah. Because polling has shifted dramatically in the last few months on immigration.
I got one for Chicago Council of Global Affairs, one from 2023 and one from 2024.
Yeah. Okay.
I can. You want to provide a source? I can put.
No. Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering what the date is. That's fine. I mean, I just want to point out that the recent study. I think it's Pew has a study that they do once a year on attitudes around immigration, or at least once a year, and they just did it recently, and like the Trump position on immigration has dropped something like 20 or 30 points since he came into office, or since last year, I should say.
Yeah, I've seen data like that.
Well, we'll find out in the midterm elections how the voter.
If we have them.
If we have them.
If everybody
do you see what Texas is trying to do right now? Do you see what Texas is trying to do right now?
Yeah, I'm going to do a room about that because I've been meaning to do a room about gerrymandering for a while. But yeah, I've heard about Texas.
I won't tell you how I voted, but I know my dead grandparents voted for Biden.
That's cute. Very cute. My point isn't that we won't have elections. It clearly will. It's more like what is the meaningfulness of them going to be given some of the moves they're trying to make right now, and also what's happened to the evisceration of the election administration bureaucracy, where like a crazy percentage of the people who actually know how to run elections are no longer in those positions, which is obviously a big problem.
Aaron, since you spend so much time on immigration, you're so knowledgeable on it, I am actually curious about the money.
I haven't made that claim,
and,
okay.
And the interest. Well, we talk about it a lot. How mad are donors to Congress that their workers are getting snatched in raids on their actual facilities?
Well, I'm mad enough that Donald Trump is changing his tune on hotel workers and farm workers. That's pretty mad.
Yeah, they pissed off Republican donors with that shit.
Is that who you were talking about?
Who do you think's employing all the wage slaves? The job creators.
Well, I mean,
but a lot of them are about a lot of the business owners are Republican supporters. A lot of the business owners in question are Republican supporters, or they support both parties to whatever extent it benefits them to do so. Your questioning of him is weird to me because it implicates like one of the reasons why he's pivoting in the first place is because he's getting pressure from his members of his own party who have a whole bunch of donor class constituents who are pissed about it.
Yeah,
and that's because
a lot of voting behavior is not based on economic self-interest. It's based on altruism and your moral view. So it's famous that people in your honors social class are not criminals, but they vote to let criminals go free. People in your honors economic class vote for higher taxes, even though higher taxes. See, your honor sees himself as altruistic and moral, so he votes.
Why is your honor like the avatar of the people you're talking about? Like,
the obsession is intense.
But there was a book called What's the Matter with Kansas, right, where leftists complained that poor church-going people voted against their economic interest. And it's definitely true. Poor church-going people do vote against their economic interest. But at the same time, your honor votes against his own economic interest. He votes for high taxes on himself to give welfare to criminals. So again, most people are like your honor. They vote based on morality, not economics.
Yeah, it's actually not a good representation of my view.
Yeah, I don't know that poor church-going people vote against their economic interests or have historically, actually. They typically vote, particularly if they're in the black church, they typically vote overwhelmingly Democrat, and overwhelmingly Democrats pursue policies that favor these communities in various different ways because they're statistically more likely to be in need of entitlement programs, welfare programs, SNAP, all that kind of WIC, all that type of shit.
Or do they need those programs because of the Democrat policies?
It's also not,
there's an interesting argument about that, and you're going along the direction of fucking Larry Elder, and I don't like his arguments, but I understand them. His whole thing is that we've Democrat policies have effectively gotten black people to norm on marrying the government as opposed to reifying or reinforcing traditional family values that are, in theory, I guess, in alignment with wealth and maximization, but there's a whole bunch of problems with this argument. There's a bunch of holes in it. There's nothing about marrying someone that guarantees that you're going to maximize your wealth. There are certain things that typically go with it in general, statistically, but there's no guarantee. I mean, you're rolling the dice, and if you're already in poverty, marriage becomes something that is hard to attain. And having your nice house with your white picket fence in various places in the country is also very difficult to obtain. Definitely in places where I've lived, like Hawaii and the Bay Area and New York. Those are places where it's hard as fuck to get your nice house with the white picket fence because the prices are fucking extremely high. But that said, that's like a version of the argument that you're kind of implying. But I don't know how true it is.
Well, it's a crazy argument, and part of it is like the idea of demand side economics is that when you have not like a large mass of people who are barely making it, which is what we have in our country currently, but you have an economy where there's a much broader middle class where more people are doing okay, and you don't have the economic cost of instability, right? Like being broke is really expensive, as any of us know who've ever been broke. All of a sudden shit just gets like crazy bad for you because of like overdraft fees and credit card interest rates and all that kind of shit. So if you have people who are basically okay, the economy actually runs a lot better, society runs a lot better. And like that's actually the theory of the case. It's not, and that is self-interested. It's just maybe a more enlightened self-interest. Because as it turns out, like the people who are, stealing cars in broad daylight, like Vanderbilt was talking about, those people are people in your community. If they're doing okay, they're not going to do shit like that.
There shouldn't be people in the community for long.
Well, I also just wanted to, unlike the idea of like marrying the government, it's like, it suggests the idea that, that there are black families, fathers, are deadbeat dads is a problem. Problem is that essentially we have, like, studies have shown that black fathers spend more time with their children than any other race.
So if you're going to operate that robust safety net for people, and you're going to operate a government-sponsored Ponzi scheme, the number one thing to maintain with any Ponzi scheme is that you have to continue to increase and build the new membership in order to pay for the increasing costs. And so when the Democratic Party systematically adopts policies that conform to or produce antinatalist outcomes and then celebrate individuals' behaviors and tear down social structures that continues to exacerbate the problems of a declining birth rate and an apathy and a social awkwardness in the population and a poorly adaptive set of social skills due to people staring at a fucking phone screen all day. When that's happening in your society and you're trying to operate a safety net, you've got to find new membership and you've got to get people to pay back in or it's going to collapse. And right now it's teetering on that. We're either going to have another baby boom and buy ourselves another 20 years, or we're going to head the way of Europe and we're going to have a lopsided demography where there's too many old people that can't be supported.
Wrong. There's another way around it, which is you can simply accept 300 million high IQ immigrants. And as a matter of fact, Manville, I'm astounded that you're ignoring that all of the U.S.'s entitlement problems can be solved with high IQ immigrants, because that's already what's happening in Palo Alto and in Northern California. The average immigrant that moves to Northern California is much, much, much smarter and harder working than the white people, and they pay much more in taxes. So the correct immigration policy can rescue the U.S., and I'm dumbfounded you didn't break.
It's not about their IQ. It's about their skill sets.
Well, yeah, but that's a single metric that's highly correlative to their.
It's not an indication of IQ.
The income is absolutely correlated to IQ.
No, it isn't.
Also, all this is kind of crazy.
It's incredibly correlated.
No, it isn't. That's a lie. I can't believe you said that.
Well, Manville, let's read.
Also, hold on a second, Tomato, hold on a second. Tomato. Okay, I'm gone. So the thing I also want to say is that we actually need a lot of low-skilled labor. That's a lot of what our undocumented immigrant population represents, because we have an aging population that needs to be cared for. We have crops that need to be harvested. Like, that's actually where a lot of the labor pressure, like the labor market pressure is. And that's why we have people coming into the country who are low skilled, in addition to the high skilled ones, which are also in demand. Because as it turns out, immigration has made this country really rich, and immigration has been much, much higher than it is now. Much, much higher in U.S. history.
Manville, I'm really surprised that you did not suggest super high skilled immigration as a way to pay off Social Security and Medicare. It sounds almost, and you know I like you, Manville, it almost sounds like just for aesthetic, moral reasons, you don't want an America filled with immigrants, even if the immigrants pay a lot in taxes.
So I find that the high skilled H-1B, immigration has a deflationary effect on the, economic reward of people working harder than average, working longer hours than average, and more complicated jobs. But if you're gonna do a high volume immigration in a short amount of time, what you have to do is also heavily assimilate that group and not ghettoize all of these immigrants into areas. Now, it has been easier to do with college educated, higher income, younger immigrants than it has been with low skilled immigrants. Low skilled immigrants are finding themselves in ethnically concentrated areas that are operating outside the norm of what we would consider American society. But there's still there is a culture and an assimilation process that you want to put them through. And we're not doing a very good job of it. Like, the melting pot might be on, but it's not very fucking hot.
I don't think
and we've got a bunch of clumps of shit.
Silicon Valley, Manville, I respect you, but you haven't spent a lot of time. The intermarriage rate, super smart people of all races and all religions are dating each other. They're marrying, they're having kids. There's a the highly productive class in Silicon Valley is assimilating faster than you realize. And I would urge you to visit and see for yourself. Respect.
I'm sure the Boston Brahmins are swirling fantastic.
The man said antinatalist for a reason, right? Like, that's his view, Tomato. You're aligning yourself with xenophobic fascists. Like, just admit it.
This is new. Being anti-natalist is xenophobic and fascist.
There's a
being natalist is xenophobic.
The impact of H.
Natalist is xenophobic.
Excuse me. There is a debate here about the impact of H-1B workers on U.S.-based employees or workers and their wages. It's actually not clear that the net impact of H-1B workers is in some way deflationary on the wages of U.S. workers. There are many indicators and studies that suggest that H-1B workers basically just complement U.S. workers by, particularly by filling in gaps in worker needs that are already here in the U.S. So they're not really supplanting U.S. workers. They're filling in gaps where needed. Let me finish first. There have been other studies that have called that into question. And so apparently the Economic Policy Institute, the EPI, presents a different picture. They raise concerns about potential wage depression and job displacement in specific sectors. And the key arguments and findings from this study include underpaying H-1B workers. It says here, a majority of H-1B positions are certified at wage levels significantly below the local median wage, even for skilled occupations like computer science. This is partly due to the Department of Labor allowing employers to use lower tier prevailing wages and potentially misrepresenting job duties and visa applications. They also say that outsourcing companies are heavy users of the H-1B program, and these firms have been accused of using the visa to replace U.S. workers with lower paid H-1B workers and eventually move those jobs offshore. then the last section here says that the Department of Labor perceived negligence. The Department of Labor's perceived negligence in enforcing wage and working condition regulations within the H-1B program allows such practices to persist. So there are certain sectors where the H-1B programs are being kind of like taken advantage of by U.S. employers, and loopholes that allow them to pay the H-1B holders lower wages than the U.S. workers. And so because they take advantage of that, that results in a kind of analogous mechanism by which the wages of these workers are deflated, akin to supplanting U.S.-based workers with undocumented people. So the mechanism is the same, but only in particular sectors. Overall, at a macro level, it doesn't seem that this is the case for H-1B visas. So it's an interesting kind of analysis to kind of take into account those things.
That's very true. America's leading labor market economist, George Borjas, who's at Harvard. He has tenure at Harvard. He studied this, and he has concluded that letting in hundreds and hundreds of millions of super smart, highly skilled immigrants would be great for the economy, and just about everyone in America would benefit. On the other hand, the leftist woke policy of letting in unskilled, violent welfare recipients is bad for America. So I would urge you to read Dr. Borjas's papers. I think you'll appreciate it, man. But it's not accurate to say immigration is bad. It depends on who you allow to immigrate.
Most low-skilled workers are not violent.
And I'm sorry, Jason. I know you want to keep me on topic, but I don't know if it was a slip of how he really feels or if he's just fully entrenched in the position. But you know how Aram is somehow surprised by the ease with which I can just honestly tell him why I'm for or against certain policies. Him admitting so freely that his position is that natalism is a xenophobic position, right? That would promote the propagation and health of, well, I guess what he's against is like white Europeans continuing to exist in America. But the idea that he immediately lumps on that as being xenophobic and somehow supremacist or fascist to want people to have children and grow families is so telling. It's so telling to the motivation.
I thought he was talking about antinatalism. I heard him say antinatalism was fascist. You say he's saying natalism is fascist?
That's what he just said. I was accusing the policies and the results of the policies the Democrats are supporting as resulting in antinatalist outcomes, and he said natalism is xenophobic.
Okay.
I think that
so is natalism the idea that what is natalism again? Or pronatalism? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, being for having kids, to grow the population, have support and grow families. And this is a common, this was a common rallying cry.
If it's motivated by making sure whatever society you are is pure or whatever, and not undermined by the influx of immigrants, then it is xenophobic. Is that what you mean?
If your whole life revolves around being obsessed with other groups coming to take yours, then yeah, you're taking on a xenophobic worldview. But having kids and wanting your kids to do well and wanting to grow the population, whether it's selfishly to pay for your welfare, or whether it's unselfishly because it's a duty to God or to the nation, right?
Yeah, but if natalism is one of those things where it's it could go in that direction, but it's not inherently, I think, fascist, or xenophobic. It really depends. If it's combined in the appropriate way with replacement theory, and the reason why you're really gung ho and promoting people to have children is because you want to keep your numbers strong as the pure race, and you don't want it to be diluted by the influx of immigrants who are intermarrying with people. then that is xenophobic as fuck and racist. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can promote it for other reasons.
That's one of the leftist talking points. That's the it's good and you're a bad person for being against it stage. Because they were wagging
but there are
the replacement.
There are natalists who are also like white nationalists and xenophobic. They exist, and they think that it's bad that our nation has a problem in terms of birth rate, and they think that we should encourage. They primarily think we should encourage white people to have kids, not so much anyone else. And they don't want to be replaced. They want to preserve whatever the fuck they think is like really awesome about our country, and it's essential whiteness, I guess. But like that is not because natalism is inherently those things. It's because natalism is being merged together with a bunch of other, I think, terrible ideologies. So I can see why natalism can become fascist, white supremacist, and xenophobic, lumped in with all these other ideological precepts. But like, it doesn't have to be. I mean, they have versions of natalism in a bunch of different countries where really they're just trying to like maximize their country by promoting childbirth and bringing up their birth rates. You have more workers, you have more people that can do stuff. Like that's a version of natalism that I don't think is necessarily xenophobic.
Recently, there's two countries that have been trying to really promote pro-natalist policies, and that's Hungary and China. And for different reasons. China, because they instituted a massive anti-natalist one-child policy for more than a generation in their country, and created a big gap in their demography. Hungary, because their population's decadence naturally produced a gap, or just their birth rate got so low that they wanted to find a way to incentivize fixing it. Well, and so Hungary did no income tax for women, no income taxes for the rest of your life for women who have at least 4 kids. I think they wanted to move it to 3. And then China's, actively trying all they can to have as many children as possible, as long as they're not Uyghurs, or love a lot more than President Xi.
Manville, I happen to have gone to a lot of natalist conferences, and I have bad news for you. None of the financial incentives have worked around the world. The only thing that restores natalism is religion. If you have a population that's not religious, you will never get them to reproduce. And if you doubt what the fuck I'm saying, I'll post 100 links to prove it. But trying to cure the birth rate problems with money is retarded, and I say that with love.
I don't think the word retarded has ever been said with love and respect in the history of
I say it with love and respect all the time, Jason. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, no.
You retard.
Manville, do you dispute my facts in any way?
I mean, I don't think that a position that absolute isn't without its exceptions, but as a general rule, it's probably a big part of societies that the religion plays a significant part in encouraging people to have families, and in sanctioning that.
If you don't bring up, Manville, I'll be very blunt, if you don't bring up your children and grandchildren to be very religious, your DNA will die out. The only groups with positive fertility are very religious, like the Amish, the Orthodox Jews, the Mormons. Like there are no atheists or irreligious people that are not heading for extinction. It just doesn't exist across any demographic.
Right. Atheists reproduce in the college classroom, not the bedroom.
Well, I don't want to derail the room.
Is Elon Musk religious? Because Elon Musk has like 8 baby mamas, bro.
Well, his dad was very. His dad is very borderline cult leader-ish. Doesn't he have like 12 siblings or something?
Yeah, I don't know, Black, if you live near Lighthaven in Berkeley, but Lighthaven in Berkeley hosts a lot of pro-natalist conferences, and they're very revelatory. If you have a deep interest in the topic, which I don't.
Also, I do think there's a big difference in ownership and perspective of someone who's acting as someone who would like to raise children in the society, and someone who's acting as someone who'd like to live out their days and then exit.
Well, it sort of explains, like, a lot of the woke leftist religion is the natural parental love for their kids is transferred to criminals. So, in other words, if you have a bunch of kids, you love your kids, and that exhausts your love. But if you have no children, it's natural for you to love criminals. That's why, like, childless people, if you survey everyone in America that doesn't have children, they much more agree with your honor about letting criminals go free and all these insane leftist things. A lot of the political divide is a childbearing divide, Manville. And if you Google it, I think you'll find what.
Did Trump win the married versus unmarried vote?
Yes, it was in fact the biggest difference. Trump won overwhelmingly among people who were married with kids voted massively for Trump, whereas single women voted overwhelmingly against him. In fact, single women are the strongest Democratic Party constituency because the Democratic Party kind of gives them substitute children, right? All women yearn to take care of children, so single women that don't have their own kids, the Democratic Party says, hey, you can take care of all these violent criminals and let the criminals go free. That's why, for example, in Sweden, as you well know, single women vote overwhelmingly for bringing in more violent migrants, and migrants become the majority of race.
Trump kicked ass in the married vote. The polls indicate that married voters as a group favored Trump over Kamala Harris. Specifically, married men supported Trump by a significant margin, 60% to 38%. Married women also voted for Trump by a majority.
It's the hidden, unspoken, taboo cheat code.
With married women, it was way less. It was 51%. So barely a majority. But still significant. But
compare that to single women who voted overwhelmingly against Trump.
See, I'm convinced that anyone who wants to be a registered voter has to have an IQ of at least room temperature. You know what? Fuck that. 85. You get one standard deviation down, and that's it.
And I'm in favor of anybody who wants to vote has to serve in the military.
Okay, but you might not like that because high IQ white people overwhelmingly vote Democrat, and the lowest IQ white people overwhelmingly vote Republican.
You could combine it with you must be married.
I wonder what the correlation of men who voted for Trump but told their wives that they voted for Kamala.
Very high percent.
Isn't that the opposite of what they tried to put out to people? They tried to get the Stepford wife to secretly vote for Kamala.
Empathy for woke leftist causes is growing among females, Manville. So you'll have.
It doesn't shock me.
And the women that are at the vanguard of our culture, like women in Hollywood and the entertainment industry, they are much more woke and accelerating. So, for example, you can easily confirm this by Googling it. A lot of the women in the entertainment industry are like cutting off the penises of their sons. Like Megan Fox has transed all of her sons. And if you Google the Jeff Younger case, Jeff Younger's wife decided to trans his kid, who was 4, and the judge sided with the wife. So he's lost custody of the kid, and the kid has been trans at the